Chapter 306. Hong Long Long. Jiuyou Tower suddenly collapsed. Despair was written all over everyone's faces. Jiuyou Tower had been in Tianlu Academy for thousands of years, and they had always been proud of it. Nobody would have thought that it would be destroyed in such a way. The most important thing was that there was a terrifying ferocious beast inside. Sun Zhongyan looked at Yi Zhiding nervously. Uncle Master, the locking heaven formation has been broken, and Jiuyou Tower has completely collapsed. What should we do next? Yi Zhiding knitted his brows and stared at the ruins. That's not right. Sun Zhongyan was dazed. What's not right? Since all the restrictions have been broken, that beast should have rushed out. Why hasn't there been any movement yet? Upon hearing this, Sun Zhongyan immediately realized something. You're saying, Yi Zhiding shook his head and walked forward. Uncle Master. Sun Zhongyan immediately stopped him. It's dangerous. Yi Zhiding waved the blood-stained fan in his hand and chuckled. No matter what, I'm still the director. How can I not go and take a look when such a big thing has happened? He didn't know if it was an illusion, but he felt that the ferocious beast's aura seemed to have disappeared. He didn't notice when he had this feeling, but at this point, he really couldn't sense any danger from the ruins. Sun Zhongyan hurriedly said, I'll go with you. The two of them went forward together. Emperor Jiawen looked at this scene dejectedly as if all his energy had been sucked out. Jiuyou Tower was already in danger when it was surrounded by the black fire. Now, Jiuyou Tower had completely collapsed into ruins. Rongxiu, I'm afraid, the Empress held his arm and softly consoled him. Your Majesty, my condolences, what nonsense are you saying? Emperor Jiawen was agitated by the words, and he pushed her harshly. The Empress didn't notice, and her body fell to the ground uncontrollably. I want to see him if he's alive, and I want to see his corpse if he's dead. Everything isn't clear yet. Who allowed you to curse him to die? Hollered Emperor Jiawen as his face flushed red, and his veins popped out. The surroundings instantly quietened down. Countless pairs of eyes landed on the Empress. The Empress felt like there was a blade on her back, and she was embarrassed. As the Empress, she had always been high and mighty. When had she ever suffered such humiliation? Although His Majesty did not dote on her much, he had always been very respectful. He had never laid a hand on her, and even rarely reprimanded her. But now, in front of all these people, she had lost all her face. Your Highness. Eunuch Min hurriedly stepped forward. Nyang Nyang, are you all right? As he spoke, he didn't forget to reprimand the person beside him. It turns out that it's Emperor Jiawen and Consort Wan's love token. What are you waiting for? No wonder Emperor Jiawen had such a strong reaction. Finally reacted. It's normal for the Empress. He does have deep feelings for Consort. The Empress was so angry that her face turned pale. The Empress didn't dare to talk already a little in public for some reason. And there was a lot of dust all over Emperor Jiawen and left even Emperor Jiawen had to become a teacher. She looked very let alone her. The palace servants only pairs of eyes until she lowered their heads. Which made her even more. I wonder what happened back then that made Consort. It seems like I can't do all the love tokens pushed them away and forced a smile. It seems like she didn't need another hope for Emperor Jiawen. Thinking His Majesty was worried about it seems like Emperor Jiawen values Rongxiu. Thank you for clearing my doubts because of Consort. I'll find it for me. His Majesty had already done 3 feet, so I won't stay any longer. Rongxiu still had a gentle smile on his face. Emperor Jiawen didn't seem to notice what's happening here as he only cared about Rongxiu. Please wait. He hollered at Rongxiu suddenly didn't care about his voice chose cold as jade clashing against each other. Before Mother left back with Jiawen, she told her that she had placed this item on the 6th floor. Turned around, surrounding gazes were like sharp knives. She also reminded me not to tell you unless I had no step. She wanted to leave immediately. Your son has forgive me, Father. She took a deep breath in and suppressed all her emotions. His body was clearly she tidied her Phoenix hairpin and bowed to him. You're doing this for her and no good. Your Majesty, right that you don't respect him. Emperor Jiawen is already with you. What's wrong? You can keep it safe from now about Princely. Then, Emperor Jiawen slowly glanced at her as if he had seen through everything. This time, the Empress's heart Tower to save return to the palace say the rest of her words. It's fake. After but it's true that I guiltily turned around and left without waiting for the other's heart chuckled in his heart. The Empress was dignified and magnanimous, who was always elegant but that wasn't the case in reality. His Majesty left just like that. She didn't like that person back then. Wasn't he asking so she naturally I don't have any other wishes in this life. If something really happened to one person's hand,
she would be happier than anyone else.
Just like what Mother said.
In the
The
past,
Empress turned
he
around
just
and
turned a blind eye to
Emperor
this
Jiao,
marriage,
but he couldn't
who
be
had already
bothered to
left.
deal with
Mobile
her now.
users.
Her
Please
rationality
browse
told
into
her
it.
that she
Chu
should
Ning
had
had already
already
rushed
reading
over with
experience
his
comes
men.
from
However,
Yuan. Too many
he
things had
directly
happened
walked in a
today,
certain
and she
direction.
could no longer control the
Chest
Empress
put
her
her
hurried, and his expression
There
was
Lu
tense.
Yue had
She
never
persisted
seen
in
this
asking
man
the compass
before.
shows that you,
This jade
in the
pendant
eyes
is
of
so
outside
fine.
relic. He was the weak princely.
Chu
You
Ning
risked your
walked
life
to a
to
certain
retrieve
spot
and it
and
was a
wanted some
sign
more
of filial
affairs.
piety and worthy of praise.
However,
he
she
quickly
knew that
realized
he
he
still
still
had
had
to
more
more
serious how he got to the
killing.
sixth floor.
The material
He was a
used to
supreme
beam
and
and
honorable
honorable
sneer
sneer
came from the
special.
side. A man like him
It
would
was
never
just
lower
turned
his head
around
till he
and
realized
realized
that
that
it was
but
Yijide.
it weighed
Now,
almost a ton.
He knelt
He
down
waved
so
the fan
decidedly.
he was a
his
stage
hands slowly
5
said,
warrior.
Prince
All
was considered
considered
a
a
legitimate
legitimate
marriage
entire
entire country Yao Chen.
Don't you know that
Chu
the
Lu
jade
however,
felt
some
even
even
overflowing from her
It was
heart.
not an easy
The
task
Empress
to
was
stay
dazzled
all the
and
rocks
dazzled.
here.
What?
Everything
When the
around her
imperial
began
guard
item
is on the
and
sixth
only that
reaction.
person's
They
figure
hurriedly
became
followed
Rong
him.
Shou has consort Wan's
He was
bloodline.
dressed in
Did
white
you
so he
discover
could
his
naturally
body was
go up
covered in
successfully.
blood. Chu Ning shook his head and
Those
didn't say
terrifying
originally
wounds
filled
were
with doubt.
ghastly sight
Moving.
to behold.
However,
The crowd
when he
however,
saw that
his
his shoulders were straight.
They had also
understood
said he could always shelter her from the wind
Now
and
that he
rain.
saw
Lord
the
Chu Ning's
Empress's
overbearing
overbearing
manner,
so many
Chu
wounds
Lu
he couldn't help
was
but
also
feel
trapped
trapped
inside.
But he couldn't
He
bear to
lazily
see
said,
most like
with
it
his
seems
little
like
bit
the
of
Empress
blood.
doesn't know
Go
about
over
this.
there
He
and
said,
move all the rocks away.
That's right. It's true that I admire
Chu
this
Ning
is between
ordered.
his majesty
He
and
said,
consort
the subordinates
Wan.
dispersed.
Hold her hand, and we'll grow
Chu
old
Ning
together.
dug
With all his might, and
He
a few
said.
cuts appeared on his hands,
Chu
which were
Liyue's
dripping
eyes
with
reddened.
blood, and something sturdy
However,
in her heart
he
seemed
didn't
to seem to be
shatter.
affected as he stubbornly
She suddenly
cleared the
thought
rocks
that
away.
if she
didn't experience the heart-wrenching
Everyone had
betrayal
different
in her previous
expressions
life,
when they
and
saw
if she
this
didn't
scene.
get reborn, she might
What's
not have
wrong
met
with Rong
Rong
Shou
Shou in
Ning?
her entire life. Although his majesty
If
asked
Rong
us to
Shou
find
was
heaven's
someone,
compensation
isn't he a
for
little
her,
too stubborn?
then she was finally willing
Could it
to
be
accept
that all the
he really
pain that
intends
she
to
had
dig
gone
up this
through in
pile
the
of
past?
ruins? Some
Sure.
scars would never fade.
Don't you
and
know that
once
Chu
one saw
Liyue
them,
is also
they would
inside?
remember everything that they had gone through.
I see.
However, there was finally someone
Then,
who could give her
isn't she
more
also?
joy and fill up all the regrets.
What a pity.
Giving her a peaceful and
Lord
happy
Chu
future.
Ning
has been through a lot all
This
these
was
years.
probably
her greatest luck. Now that he finally made Rong Shou's something like this shocked everyone present. Chu Ning turned
Emperor
a deaf
Jiao
ear to
almost
everyone's
suspected
discussion
that he had
heard wrongly. Then, he
W, what
realized
did
that
you
there were a
say?
few more people beside
Why
him.
you want me to bestow marriage
He looked up
between you
and
and
saw a
Lu Yu?
few familiar young faces. Rong Shou lightly nodded,
Hongyu.
and his expression was calm
It was
and
Mu
determined.
Hongyu.
Sun Hu,
This
and
clearly
Gumi wasn't a
phone.
spur-of-the-moment decision.
Mu
Hongyu's eyes were red.
Emperor
but she
Jiao
looked
opened
very
his mouth
determined
and
scanned the two of them with
uncomplicated
We're here to
gaze.
help you. Rong
Chu
Shou
Ning's
was
heart
actually
warmed as he
interested in
nodded.
Chu Liyue. Help me here.
Even though he was surprised,
The few of them
it was still
immediately
within
took
his
action.
expectations.
Even Zhuo
In
Rong
terms
and
of
the rest
appearance,
couldn't bear to
Chu
see
Liyue
this
was
scene. Absolutely devastatingly
Lord Chu
beautiful.
Ning,
We know that you're very
in terms
worried
of
about
strength,
Lu Yu,
Chu
but
Liyue
none of
had
us
just
wanted
taken
this first
first
place twice in the Qing Jiao
She
competition.
Screech.
He was undoubtedly a
crisp cry
top suddenly
genius.
came from the ruins. In terms of family
Then,
background,
a few
although
rocks that
Chu
were piled
Liyue
up
and his
together
daughter
were
had
suddenly
completely
blown away
fallen
by
out
a
with the
ball of
Chu
green
family.
flames.
Chu Liyue was now
A
the
green
commander-in-chief
sparrow
of the
flew out
Imperial
quickly.
Guards, and Chu
Two
Liyue
figures
was
appeared
in
in
front of
only
everyone.
disciple.
No matter how
users,
one looked
please
at it,
browse
Chu
for a better
Liyue was
reading
definitely
experience
worthy
from
of
Love
Rong
Network.
Shou. Moreover, this time it was
Chapter
Rong Shou who took
307.
the initiative to speak.
For so many years,
Princely, Rong Shou had never
everyone
asked for
was
anything,
shocked when they
except
saw
the
this
two of
time.
them. And
Who
it was
else
to
could it
ask
be
for a
but
marriage
Chu
contract
Liyue
and Rong Shou, who were previously
Emperor
trapped in
Jiao
Joyo suddenly
Tower.
recalled that Rong Shou
Chu
had
Ning
used all
immediately
sorts of
walked
reasons
over
to
with
reject
big
him when he
strides.
asked him to choose a princess consort. At that
Are
time,
you okay?
he didn't think about it. He
But
asked
now that he
nervously
thought
as he
about it,
sized up
perhaps
Chu
he
Liyue.
already
had this idea at when that
he
time.
saw
that Chu Liyue's
How
body
could he
was
have
covered
failed
in
to see
blood and
that?
dust. His heart
But
skipped
after
a
the
beat.
shock,
Emperor
you're
Jiao's
injured.
thoughts changed, and he
Chu
suddenly
Liyue's
felt that
lips
this
were
was
dry
not
and
bad.
white
as he weakly shook his
Rong
head.
Shou
should have gotten married.
No,
It's mainly because
Chu
His
Liyue
Highness
was so
Chu
outstanding
Ning then
and could
saw
risk
that
her
Chu
life to
Liyue
save
was
him.
supporting Rong Shou.
She was
and
indeed
his
the
situation
best
seemed to be
candidate.
even worse. His expression
His
changed
face
was
slightly.
as pale as a sheet, and
Rong
he was barely
Shou's
breathing
sudden
as if
marriage
he would faint
proposal
at any
caught
moment.
everyone
off guard. There were many wounds
wounds
Many
on his
ladies
body,
in the crowd
and
looked
some were so
disappointed
deep
and
that his
regretful.
bones could be seen.
I didn't expect
What
Princely
happened
to
to
like
His
Chu
Highness?
Luiyue.
7.
There's nothing strange about this.
Emperor Jiawen was surprised when he
After
saw
all,
Rong
Chu
Xiu come
Luiyue
out,
is
and he
outstanding
hurriedly
in all
walked over.
aspects. But when he
In the
saw
past,
Rong Xiu
many
covered in
people
wounds,
avoided her
the
because
joy
she
on his
offended the
face
Chu
immediately
family and the
disappeared,
crown prince,
and it was replaced by deep
However,
shock and
the
worry.
situation changed after
7.
the Qing Jiao competition.
What happened to you? I heard that a few
Zhuo
young
Rong,
masters from aristocratic
elder
families
son,
wanted to propose to her.
come and take a look.
However, since
Zhuo
Princely
Rong
has
was originally
personally
at the
spoken,
side,
the others
and he
definitely
immediately
don't
went
have a
forward
chance.
when he heard this.
Actually,
Sun Zhongyan,
other than
elder
being
Yi,
outstanding,
and the rest,
Princely
who were
isn't
planning
good in
to
other
enter the
aspects,
ruins,
also rushed over
Strength
when they
is
heard the
everything.
commotion. There's
Ever
nothing
since the
special about
Empress
a
saw
sickly
Chu
person
Luiyue
like him.
and
Rong Xiu appear.
Anyway,
She stood
His
rooted
Majesty
to the ground
loves
and didn't
Princely.
recover her senses for a long
So
time.
what if he's sickly?
The two of them.
I think
the
some
two of
people
them
are
actually
just sour
didn't
grapes
die because they can't eat them.
Joyo Tower caused
such a huge commotion. First, it burned,
who was
and then
standing
it
in a
completely
secluded corner,
collapsed, felt her limbs turn
just how
cold as
lucky
she
were they to
dazedly
be able
watched
to come
the
out
scene
alive
from afar. But when she
All
saw
sorts
that
of
Emperor
discussions
Joan had
entered her
already
ears,
walked over,
and they were
she
like
clenched her
daggers
teeth
stabbing
and
into
could
her
only
heart.
follow. She was
Will
clearly
Rong
not
help
injured,
Rong
but she
take
felt
his
pain
pulse?
all over for some reason.
Emperor Joan asked,
Previously,
"How are you?"
when she saw that Rong
"How is
Xiu
it?"
was severely injured, she
Rong
was still
frowned and
worried and
thought
wanted
for
to
a
go
moment.
forward to comfort him. Don't worry too much,
But now,
Your Majesty.
her
legs felt like they were filled
Most
with
of
lead,
His Highness
and they were
injuries are just
extremely
superficial
heavy
wounds.
She clearly
As
heard
long
what
as he
Rong Xiu
recuperates
said
well,
previously.
he will recover very quickly.
He actually said that he
The
admires
Rock and
Chu
Emperor
Liyue.
Joan's heart was finally
He
put
even
down.
took the initiative to ask
That's
for her
good,
hand in marriage.
that's good.
I've
Although
known
he
Rong
was
Xiu
injured
for so
he
many
was still
years,
alive.
but I've never heard him say
This
the
was
word
much
beg.
better than what he had expected.
Now, he's actually
Suo
willing to
Rong
do
said
this for Chu
hesitantly.
Liyue. But
What's
so
but
good
what?
about that cunning and sinister
Emperor
Chu
Joan
Liyue
was dazed.
Situ Xingqian
But His
clenched her
Highness's
body
fists
and
has always
harshly
been
shut
weak.
her eyes. Previously,
Chu Ning
it was not
quietly
easy
walked
to
to
nurse
Chu
him back to
Liyue's
health side and threw her a
This
questioning
time,
gaze.
I'm afraid he will have to
What's going on with
again.
Prince Li?
Why
Disappointment
did he
filled
suddenly
Emperor
ask
Joan's
His
Majesty
eyes?
to grant him a marriage.
Rong Xiu had been
He
ill
said that
since
he
was a
admires you.
child.
Is it true?
Now that he finally got
Does
better,
you,
he
like
didn't
Prince
expect
Li?
it.
Chu
Forget
Ning's
it,
gaze
let's
swept
talk
across
about
the
this
two of
later.
them and felt that his question
The
was
most
a waste
important
of time.
thing
now is to heal old
If the
Seven's
two of them
injuries.
really had no feelings for
Rong
each other,
Xiu forced
why
a
would they
smile
come out
on
of
his
Joyo
pale
Tower
lips
together?
and said in a low voice,
I actually
"Imperial
didn't notice
father."
it at all.
Emperor Joan
Emperor
hurriedly
Joan
said,
looked at Rong
"Yes."
Xiu,
and many thoughts
You rest
flashed
first.
across his mind. If you have anything to say,
In
say
the
it later.
end,
He was only left with Rong
At
Xiu's
this
last
moment,
sentence.
Yi Zhiding
and Sun
he
Zhongyan had
enunciated
already
every
walked
word
over.
clearly.
Girl, have you decided on her?
How are you?
Rong Xiu
The first
nodded.
person that Yi Zhiding saw
Father,
was his precious
please
disciple.
grant my wish.
Chu Liyue
Emperor
hurriedly
Joan
said,
then looked at
Master,
Chu Liyue.
I'm fine.
Liyue,
Master,
what about you?
I'm fine.
Chu Liyue
You
took
should
a
take a
deep
look at
breath
His
in.
Highness Prince Li first.
It's Liyue's fortune.
Even though she looked disheveled,
Emperor Joan
Yi Zhiding
kept
saw
quiet
that her
for a
voice
while
was
and
filled with
finally
energy,
smiled, and he felt much more at
Ha
ease.
ha ha.
Okay,
That's good.
Since
That's
the
good.
case, then,
Even
at
though
this
he really
point,
wanted to
a
take
voice
Chu
suddenly
Liyue's
sounded
pulse,
from afar.
on second thought,
His
Wait,
precious disciple might be
I
better
don't
than him
agree
in
to
this
this
aspect.
marriage.
Thus,
Mobile
he
users,
decided to
please
give up.
browse and read.
She always knew
A better
what to
reading
do.
experience comes from
Hence,
Yuan.
he turned his gaze to Rong Xiu.
He stepped forward and asked Suo
Chapter
Rong,
311.
how's his condition?
The crowd
How's
turned
he?
around and realized that it
Suo
was the
Rong
crown
gave a
prince,
simple
Rong
explanation.
Jin. Ever
Yi
since he
Zhiding
was
listened,
publicly
he took
humiliated by Mu
Rong Xiu's pulse
Qingha
again.
at the palace banquet.
Everyone
Rong
present
Jin
had
knew
been
that Yi
staying
Zhiding
in
was the
Crown
most
Prince
capable
Mansion.
celestial physician
He
here,
originally
so
planned
nobody
to come
felt
out
that it was
after the commotion
unnecessary
died
for him
down.
to take Rong Xiu's pulse a
Hence,
second time.
he didn't do anything even when he
Instead,
heard about
they
Joyo
felt much
Tower's
more at
changes.
ease. After
However,
a moment of
he
silence,
heard that his father
Yi
and
Zhiding
mother were
nodded
here,
and took out
so
a
he
pill to
hurried
feed
over.
Rong Xiu.
He didn't
Your
expect to hear
Highness's
Rong
body
Xiu
is
begging
fine.
his father for a marriage
I'll
once
help
he
you
arrived.
stop the bleeding first.
Furthermore,
And I'll treat your wounds
the
when we
marriage
go
was
back.
bestowed upon him in Chu
In less
Liyue.
than half a month,
Your
Rong
external
Jin couldn't
injuries
care
will be
about
healed.
anything else as he stopped him
However,
without thinking.
your internal injuries.
Rong Jin hastened his
Old
footsteps
Seven
and
still
rushed
has
to
internal
Emperor Joan
injuries.
under the crowd's gazes.
Emperor Joan couldn't
He
help but
swallowed
interrupt.
his saliva and spoke with
Yi
much
Zhiding
difficulty.
looked at him as if it was natural.
Father, of course,
You can't agree to the marriage.
The injuries on his body
Emperor
were obviously
Joan knitted
caused
his
by the
brows.
falling rubble. Crown
Joyo
Prince,
Tower's
your
rocks
rocks
are
are
very
very
heavy,
so it's normal
does
for
he
them to
think he
cause
is?
internal injuries.
Why did he suddenly
However,
appear at this
it's
time and
fine.
speak with such a tone?
The pill that I gave you
Rong
earlier
Jin
can
was
improve your
shocked
blood
and then
circulation
realized that
and
what he
heal
was
your
doing
internal
wasn't very
injuries.
appropriate.
He might need
However,
a month to fully
the situation
recover,
was
but
urgent,
Your Majesty,
and he had no
you don't
other
have to be
choice.
overly worried. Seeing Rong
Emperor
Jin
Joan
like this,
was both
the
happy
Empress's
and worried.
heart skipped a beat when she
He
thought
knew
of his
that this
stupid
was the
words
best
about
outcome,
remarrying
so
Chu
he could
Liyue
only
as the
nod.
crown princess.
Thank you, Elder
Is
Yi.
Rong Jin crazy for
Yi
appearing
Zhiding
at
softly
this time?
said a few more words to
Crown
Suo Rong.
Prince, this has nothing to
Suo
do with
Rong
you.
wiped the sweat off his
You can
forehead
leave
in
now,
embarrassment,
said the Empress calmly
Thank
with a
you for
hint
your
of warning in
advice,
her tone.
Director.
However,
He was too
Rong
anxious
Jin
just
couldn't
now,
listen to
and he
anything
wasn't
at this
very
point.
proficient in this area.
He finally realized
Hence,
that he liked
he
Chu
didn't
Liyue.
realize that something had happened
How
to
could
Rong
he let it
Xiu's
go?
internal injuries.
It was impossible for him to
Luckily,
give her to
Emperor
someone
Joan's
else.
heart was on
on Rong's show.
Thinking of this,
so he didn't pay attention to this
teeth
point
and directly knelt down.
Old 7,
You
Father,
can't do this
the
again in the
bestowment of
future.
marriage is of great importance.
Joyo Tower is so dangerous.
Please reconsider.
How can you go there?
Emperor Zhaowen
Said
knitted
Emperor
his brows
Zhaowen
even
softly.
tighter.
It
Marriage
seemed like
is
a
a good
reprimand,
thing,
but
why does
everyone
it
could
sound
hear
like
the
a
worry
bad
in his
thing when
words.
Rong Jin says it?
After today's
You don't
incident,
agree?
everyone in the imperial
Rong
city
Jin,
would know how
even
much
though
His
you're the
Majesty
crown
cared
prince,
about Prince
it's
Li.
not up to you to say anything
Even the
when I
crown
want to
prince
grant a
might
marriage.
not receive such treatment.
Emperor Zhaowen was still
Some
unhappy
people gathered
with Rong
together
Jin
and whispered
because of
to
what
each other.
happened at the palace banquet.
I've long heard that His
In
Majesty
addition to the
favors
series
Prince
of
Li a
events
lot.
that happened today, Emperor
not,
Jiawen had
he
long
wouldn't have
lost his
conferred him the
patience.
title of prince the moment he
Hence,
came back.
he didn't give Rongjin any
It
face.
seems like it's true now.
The Empress sensed that he was on the
All
verge of
these
exploding
years,
in anger.
have you seen His
So she
Majesty
hurriedly
cares
went
so much
forward
about
and
any
wanted to
prince
help
or princess?
Rongjin up. Even
Didn't
the
you hear what
arrogant
your
and
father
despotic
said?
fourth princess wasn't
Hurry
like
up
this,
and get up.
right? Princely and Miss
The fourth
Chu are in
princess
love
has
with each
already
other
become
and
a
are a
good for
perfect
nothing.
couple. How can
If
she
you
be
continue
compared?
to speak nonsense,
On the
don't
other
blame
hand,
Imperial
haven't
Mother
you
for
heard that the
punishing
Crown
you.
Prince angered His Majesty
The
a
Empress
while ago,
pinched
and he was put under house
and
arrest
shot him
and
a
Crown
threatening
Prince
look
looked
from
from
an
an angle
long
that the
time.
crowd couldn't see. He even took back some of his
Rongjin's
privileges.
impression of Emperor Jiawen had
Is
already
His Majesty
deteriorated
biased?
quite a bit.
If this continued, his
Lower
position
your
as the
voice.
Crown Prince would really be in Can't danger.
you see that His Majesty and the
Rongjin
Empress are
was
still
in
here?
pain, but he was even
I
more
don't think
conflicted.
so.
Think about it. How could
Even
he not
if His
know what the
Majesty really
consequences
dotes
of his
on
actions
princely
would
the
be?
most, but
How can a
he
sickly
couldn't
person
help but
take
look
on
at
such a
Chu
big
Liyue.
responsibility? The woman was slender
That's true.
and elegant. However,
Even though
if
her
Prince
body
Li's
was stained
body
with
is better,
blood,
he
it
might
didn't
really
detract
become
from
a
her
formidable
elegance.
opponent for the Crown Prince.
In the past,
this woman
the Empress
clearly
could
belonged
only
to
hear
him.
bits and pieces of the soft
Even though
discussions.
he cancelled the marriage agreement because of his
However,
momentary
this was enough to
foolishness,
make her feel
he
very
definitely
aggrieved.
couldn't accept watching Chu Liyue
She
get
forcefully
married to
suppressed
someone
the
else.
tumultuous emotions in her
Especially
heart and
when
looked
this
at Chu
person was
Liyue and
Rongxiu. He grabbed the Empress's I heard
hand
that you
and
went in
firmly
after
pried it
Joyo
open.
Tower burned. The Empress's
It was
heart
so
sank,
dangerous then,
and she heard
why did you go
Rongjin
in?
say word by word. Her voice was gentle,
Father,
and there was a
I'm
faint
serious.
smile on her lips. This is because,
However,
her eyes were
I'm
cold.
also interested in Liyue.
I heard that only Miss Chu
Gasps
was
could be
inside
heard
at
from
that
the
time.
crowd.
Your
Did
Highness,
I hear wrongly?
You didn't get injured because you
Crown
wanted
Prince
to save
actually
her,
said
did
that he's
you?
interested in Chu Liyue.
Translator, Endless
I
Fantasy
really don't
Translation
understand.
Editor. Endless Fantasy
He had a marriage
Translation.
agreement with Chu Liyue in the past,
and he was the one
Chapter
who wanted to cancel it.
308.
How
The
long has
Empress
it been?
gently said
Yet
this
he's
sentence,
regretting it now. But it was like a poisonous snake spitting
isn't
out
it
its
normal
tongue.
to regret
It
it?
was filled with evil intentions.
The current Chu Liyue is
Once she
outstanding in
confirmed
every
that this was the
aspect.
case, it wasn't a
If I
good
missed
thing
out
for
on such a
Rongxiu and Chu
fiancé,
Liyue. I'd also regret it.
In that case,
Even
Rongxiu
so,
would become
it's
an
not good for the
infatuated
Crown
man
Prince
who would
to
do
go back
anything
on
for
his
a
woman
woman
in the eyes of the public.
Besides,
and Chu Liyue
it's
would
clearly
be called a
Princely who
troublemaker.
proposed the marriage first.
No matter how much Emperor
Now that the
Jiawen
Crown
favored
Prince is
Rongxiu,
interfering,
he couldn't
it's a
hand
little
his
too
career
much.
to such a
I don't know
person.
what His Majesty is thinking.
At least, the officials
The
in the
Crown
Imperial
Prince and
Court wouldn't
Princely are
agree.
fighting over a woman in
Needless
public.
to say, Chu
It's
Liyue.
really
The royal
Chu
family
Xianlin,
had always
who had
avoided
rushed
such
over
women
with
like
Rongjin,
snakes and scorpions.
coldly watched this scene.
As expected,
Her
the
lips
moment
under the
she
veil
said that,
couldn't help
Emperor
but curl
Jiawen's
up into a
expression
mocking
froze.
smile. The
She
situation
originally
was
thought
too
that her
tense
heart
just
would ache,
now,
but
so
when
she
she
didn't
saw
have time to think
Rongjin
about
say
this.
those words in public,
Now
she
that the
shockingly
Empress mentioned
realized
it,
that she
he
only
also
wanted to
felt that
laugh.
something was amiss.
He has always been like this,
Rongxiu,
hasn't he?
Liyue,
Is what the
in
Empress
the
said
past,
true?
Chu Liyue was a
He
good for
sized
nothing
the
who
two
was
of them up
bullied and
suspiciously.
Rongjin
Rongjin
felt that
the
this
two of them
fiancé
did
of
come
his
out
had
together.
embarrassed him and didn't want to stay
Did
with her for a
Rongxiu
while.
really go in for Chu Liyue?
Now that Chu Xianlin's
Perhaps
looks
it was
were
because he
ruined
had
and her
taken these
reputation
eating
was
pill,
tarnished,
but
he didn't
Rongxiu's
care about her
complexion
at all.
looked better now. He was always
His tail
chasing
looked
after better
smooth
things,
slightly,
as if all
and
the
a
good
faint
things in the
smile
world
appeared
should
on
be
his
his.
face.
What a joke!
Father,
That's not the case.
I accompanied and served him day
I went
and
in
night,
for another
but I
reason.
didn't get any affection from him.
I just happened to meet Miss Chu in the
Instead,
middle.
I have
so we
to
came
stand
out here
here
and
and
watch him go crazy for
The
another
Empress
woman.
sneered in her heart, but
Chu
she didn't show it
Xianlin
on her
looked down
face
and hid the ripples in her
Oh.
eyes.
So,
Emperor
it's
Jiawen
just
was
a
shocked.
coincidence?
What did you
But
say?
why are your injuries so serious?
Rongjin took
Princely?
a deep breath in and said,
On the
"In
other
the
hand,
past,
I
Miss
was
Chu doesn't
insensible
seem
and
to
didn't
have any
cherish
major
Liyue.
injuries. Now that
People
I've
who
come
don't
to my
know would
senses,
think that you were
I
injured
only
because
hope that
you wanted
Father
to
can
save
restore
her."
our marriage agreement."
As she spoke,
She
she glanced
glanced
at
at
Emperor
Emperor
Jiawen
Jiawen
and sighed.
"Father, please
Luckily,
grant me my
Princely
wish."
is blessed by the heavens.
Emperor Jiawen almost
If
thought
not,
that there was something
I don't know
wrong
how
with
sad your
Rongjin's
Majesty
brain.
would be.
He's the one
Don't
who
you
wants
think
to
so,
cancel the
Your
marriage
Majesty?
agreement, and he's the one
Emperor
who wants to
Jiawen's
restore
gaze
it.
swept past Chu
Does he
Liyue
think
with a
that
hint
this
of
is a
scrutiny.
joke? The
Rongjin.
Empress's words made sense.
Do you
Anyone
know
who
what you're
saw the
saying?
situation between the two
Hollered
would find
Emperor
it strange.
Jiawen.
Speaking of
Rongjin's
which,
heart trembled
Princely
as he
and
knew
Miss
that Emperor
Chu are
Jiawen
really
was fated to
angry.
meet.
At
He
the
clearly
Crown
knew
Prince's
that his
birthday
actions
banquet,
hurt Emperor
Princely
Jiawen's
seemed to
reputation.
take special care of Miss Chu.
But things had already reached this
Emperor
stage,
Jiawen knitted
and he
his
couldn't
brows
back down.
slightly. He had
That was
already
right.
knelt down and said what he wanted to say.
He also
remembered this matter. Wouldn't it be even more
Even though
laughable
it was
if
just
he
a
gave up
small
just
matter?
like that? It was indeed a little
Besides,
strange now that
he
thought
really
about
didn't
it.
want to give up on Chu
The
Lu.
Empress lowered her voice
He
and
straightened
suddenly
his back,
smiled, looked at Emperor Joan,
Your
and
Majesty,
said,
please
I've
don't
already
take it
made
to
up my
heart.
mind.
I was just
So what if
speaking
you've already
casually.
made up your mind? Princely had not been
can't
in the
be so
capital for many
presumptuous
years,
in this matter.
so he should not have been familiar
Rome
with Miss
Jean
Chu
choked
before.
for a
moment. These were
I'm
just
the crown
groundless
prince,
guesses,
and
Lu Yu is the best
Moreover,
candidate for the
if
crown
Princely
princess.
really liked Miss Chu,
Emperor
it would
Joan
make a
was
good
really
story.
furious, and his chest
But Emperor
heaved up
Joan
and down
didn't look
violently.
happy at all.
If they weren't
Rome
in front of
Xiao
so many
smiled
people,
gently.
he would have harshly kicked
Imperial
Rome Jean.
father,
I actually have to thank Miss Chu for today. He thought that Rong Jin was good in every aspect saved me and was the best candidate. I'm afraid I would have died in Joyo Tower. However, he didn't know when Rong Jin started to become narrow-minded and calculated. Couldn't help but ask. He even used despicable means to achieve his goals. Exactly. He forgave Rong Jin again and again as he always thought that Rong Jin clenched his fists and coughed a few times on his lips. It seemed like he was very wrong now. When Joyo Tower started to collapse, Jin's personality I was coincidentally trapped on the 6th floor. Rong Shio had the injuries on my body were hand in marriage in public because of his love and gratitude for her. The 6th floor was sealed by the collapsed rocks. By doing I tried my best to get openly snatching a woman from his brother. Coincidentally, I met this woman was the one he cancelled his marriage agreement with. She helped me and brought me out without caring about the disgraced the royal family. Only then could I see the light of day again. Pointed at Rong Jin's face and sneered. Rong Shio didn't continue really tired of being the crown prince. Was clear. Today, I'm going to remove you as the crown prince. So, mobile users, you weren't injured because browse for a better reading experience for my UN. She saved you? Rong Shio lightly nodded. Imperial father is wise. Your Majesty. Emperor Jiawen then heaved a sigh of relief. When the Empress heard the words remove the crown prince, the way he looked at Chu Lu, her limbs was also very different and she instinctively exclaimed, I see. Your Majesty, please calm down. It seems like I still have to thank you this time. The crown prince was just being impulsive. Rong Shio hasn't been by my side for so many years. Impulsive? Now that he's finally relying on his status as the crown prince to think that everything has to be listened to. If something really happens, Emperor Jiawen, how am I going to explain it to Wan? He doesn't deserve to be the crown prince, and pain flashed across his face. He had long known that Rong Jin desired the throne. Empress looked down and hid the jealousy in her eyes. He secretly tried to kill third prince. She seemingly smiled and said, he wants to snatch the princess consort from seventh prince. So that's how it is. It's not even his turn to really made a mistake. Yet he's already so arrogant. I didn't expect Miss Chu to be able to save power from such a dangerous place. I don't know what he'll become. Her slender body. The Empress's legs really turned to jelly, and she almost collapsed on the floor. Chu raised her brows slightly. Emperor Jiawen's sentence was equivalent to the Empress isn't willing to give death. Rong Shio has already said so much. He would never be able to make a comeback. Wants to drag me down. Your Majesty, it's a pity that such small tricks don't work on me. I didn't teach the crown lightly smiled. Please let him off this time. Took first place in both the warrior and Shen master categories in the Qingjiao competition. Rong Jin was also dazed. I've been sick for a long time, father, so I naturally can't be compared to her in this aspect. As my princess consort. The Empress was stumped. I didn't do anything outrageous. I actually forgot about this. So why is father so angry? Although Chu Luiyue even wants to remove my crown prince position. Chu Luiyue bent her knees and bowed. An extremely loud slap suddenly rang out. Your Majesty. The Empress harshly slapped Rong Jin's insignificant skills don't catch your eye. Hurry up. It's my honor to be able to help Imperial father. The Empress was speechless. Rong Jin's face was slapped to the side, and his cheeks quickly insignificant skills. Then blood even seeped out of the corner of his Qingjiao competition. It was obvious how hard the Empress slapped him. You actually took first place in the Qingjiao competition? The Empress was very anxious. And suddenly spoke with a shocked expression. Her face was green and white, and tears even flowed out of her eyes. He had been busy dealing with Joyo Tower and didn't have time to find out about forward and slap Rong Jin awake. Sun Zhongyan chuckled. Does he know what's going on? Uncle Master, His Majesty has already spoken. If we don't stop this as soon as possible, twice, the crown prince will definitely be removed. Widened his eyes and only reacted after a while. It will be impossible to salvage the situation. What about the celestial physician? Rong Jin has always been smart. Chu Luiyue why did he become so stupid today? I didn't tell you anything. No, I should say that ever since he interacted with Master competition, he gradually became like this. Yi Jiding was instantly caused by Chu Luiyue. Although he knew that Chu Luiyue might not be interested in the celestial physician competition, but he finally woke up from the Empress's competition given her standards. He knelt and took 2 steps forward. Imperial father, please calm down. But it had nothing to do with the celestial physician. I know I was wrong. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't disappointed. Do you know your mistake now? Sun Zhongyan held back his laughter. Weren't you acting like a crown prince just now? Uncle Master. Actually, even though he was angry that Rong Jin sent someone to assassinate the pill that won first place was refined by want to cripple Rong Shio. Yi Jiding was confused. The members of the royal family were heartless to begin with. Briefly explained the situation. Especially the emperor. So, from a certain perspective, ruthless enough, Liu can be considered to have taken first place in all 3 competitions. Today's matter made him extremely disappointed. Sighed and looked at the empress meaningfully. Rong Jin actually did such a thing in public for Vice Admiral Mu of the Tianling dynasty has already chosen such a person would not be able to take on such a huge responsibility. The empress's body swayed. Rong Jin was flustered, didn't like the person and he then realized that things were developing in an uncontrollable direction. Wasn't she just making things difficult for herself? Father, I'm not. I didn't. The Empress was extremely nervous. But Emperor Jiawen couldn't be bothered to listen to his explanation, but she realized that it would only be disadvantageous to her if she continued to harp on this issue. Please wait. She suddenly thought of something and her eyes lit up. There seems to be a restriction on every level of Joyo Tower. Did you forget Country Xing Luo's previous body is weak, so how did he reach the 6th level? You already agreed to send Rong Jin over, and there are less than 20 days left. If you cripple Rong Jin's position as the surroundings fell silent, how are you going to deal with this matter? Even Sun Zhongyan and the rest couldn't help but look at Rong paused and knitted his brows tightly. Actually, this was what they were most curious about this matter. Back then, even Wei Yun was invitation wasn't the most important thing. But Rong Xiu successfully barged in and went all the way to the 6th floor. Wanted Rong Jin and Sidu Xingchen to know that even Sun Zhongyan and the rest had only reached the 5th floor at most. Now, then, there would indeed be a lot of closely at Rong Xiu. And many guesses flashed the other party valued Rong Jin's position ever since the Crown Prince came back. He had been living in seclusion. Emperor Zhaowen was stuck in a dilemma other than fell silent. He rarely interfered with other matters. Who wasn't far away, he seemed to have no desires. She was gentle and calm. What does this mean? However, she felt that something was amiss. When did Father and Emperor Zhaowen agree on this? She couldn't pinpoint exactly what the problem was, but she had a feeling that Rong Xiu wasn't as simple and harmless as he looked on the surface. Country Xing Luo and Country Yao Chen have always minded their own business. How did he enter Joyo Tower and go up to the 6th floor? Why are they suddenly so close to each other? Countless gazes landed on Rong Xiu. I don't know anything about this. Rong Xiu looked calm as he smiled. Her heart suddenly lit up. That smile didn't extend to the corners of his eyes. Could it be because of what Elder Lian Ning said before? The reason why I can go up to the 6th floor is that my mother wants me to have a marriage alliance with Rong Jin. Emperor Zhaowen was stunned. I don't even know why Father has such a thought, and he seems very insistent. Took out something from his arms. Situ Xingchen's face turned ugly. Ring-shaped jade pendant. I don't like Rong Jin at all. It was entirely green in color. If this can make Father give up on the idea of a marriage alliance, I really want it to happen. It was clear and clean. However, there was a pattern engraved on the jade pendant. The Empress saw that the situation from the corner of his eyes and realized that it seemed to be a peach blossom pattern. Your Majesty, clearly a jade pendant carved from high quality today, but other than punish him however there didn't seem to be anything special about it. However, the Crown Prince's matter concerns the entire country changed when he saw the jade pendant. You must think twice. He hurriedly walked forward as if he wanted to take a closer look at the jade pendant. It wasn't because he still had suddenly stopped halfway, but he really did have to consider. Had never seen such an expression on Emperor Zhaowen's face. The Empress hurriedly signaled to the few officials who rushed over with her eyes. Longing, regret she glanced at the Empress, people were originally standing behind Emperor Zhaowen, and her face naturally tried their best to fight she had seen something terrifying. Your Majesty. With a thought, she roughly guessed the origin of the jade pendant. The Crown Prince was foolish for a moment, but he doesn't deserve to die. Asked Emperor Zhaowen with a trembling voice. Please be magnanimous and give him a chance. The 6th floor. The Crown Prince has been very outstanding all these years, and he has worked hard day and night just to share some of your burden. I remembered that the item was still on the 6th level, even if he didn't make any contributions, so I went up despite being stopped. Your Majesty, although I was injured, if you really removed the Crown Prince's position, I got it back in one piece. What will Prince Li and Miss Chu do in the future? She personally gave me back then. Chu Luiyue raised her brows slightly. After she left the palace, she took it with her. She didn't like hearing this. I have been looking for this thing for many years, own death have to do with me and Rong Xiu. Emperor Zhaowen's I haven't even said that I'm disgusted by Rong Jin's and he didn't say anything for a long time. Rong Xiu's expression was as calm as usual. He smiled lightly and said, "The Empress is right. Sirs, your words are not without reason. Father, I just want to ask you for a marriage. I don't want things to escalate to this stage. If you really don't forgive brother today, then, it's my fault." Emperor Zhaowen sighed deeply. Rong Xiu, you've always been sensible. If it weren't for my poor health, the Crown Prince position would have been mine long ago. Where would Rong Jin be? What a pity. Emperor Zhaowen's regretful expression stabbed the Empress and Rong Jin's hearts again. But at this point, they didn't dare to show any unhappiness no matter what. After a stalemate, Emperor Zhaowen finally looked at Chu Luiyue. "Luyu, what do you think?" Chu Luiyue bent his knees and bowed. "Your Majesty is wise. Ever since the Crown Prince broke off the engagement with me, we haven't interacted with each other. So, I don't know why he suddenly acted this way today. On the other hand, Prince Li has helped me time and time again. Lu Yu is very grateful. So, Lu Yu is willing to take care of Prince Li for the rest of his life and never betray him." Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from AI Network. Chapter 313. She enunciated every word and sentence clearly. Emperor Zhaowen looked at Chu Luiyue with a deep gaze. After a while, he finally spoke. Chu Luiyue, daughter of the Imperial Guard's commander, Chu Ning, is gentle, elegant, and dignified. I like you very much. Today, it's time for my seventh son, Prince Li, to get married. For the beauty of Prince Li, I specially betroth Lu Yu to Prince Li as his princess consort. The wedding will be held on a date. Emperor Jiawen's low and powerful voice clearly echoed in the crowd's ears. Everyone was silent for a moment. Before this, nobody expected Prince Li to marry Chu Luiyue. These two people who didn't seem to have much interaction actually became a couple. Now that the imperial edict had been issued, everything was set in stone. Rong Xiu's thin lips curved up slightly. Thank you for your grace, father. This voice finally made the crowd recover their senses. Everyone thanked him and congratulated Chu Ning one after another. No matter what, Chu Luiyue would be a princess consort from now on, and her status would naturally be very different from before. Even though Prince Li's health wasn't good and he didn't have much power, His Majesty seemed to favor Prince Li a lot from today's situation. With this, Prince Li's days wouldn't be too bad. As for Chu Luiyue, she had previously broken off her engagement with the crown prince. Even though she had become a genius that everyone envied, this matter was still rather sensitive. Now that she was betrothed to Prince Li, and Prince Li personally asked for it, it couldn't be better. All in all, this engagement had more advantages than disadvantages to them. Amidst the joyous atmosphere, only Rong Jin's expression didn't look too good. He looked at Chu Luiyue in a daze, but he saw that Chu Luiyue had already stood up, walked to Rong Xiu's side, and helped him up. Rong Xiu coughed a few times, and his face turned even paler. Rong Jin clenched his teeth. If it were anyone else who got Chu Luiyue, he could accept it. But why did it have to be Rong Xiu? In the past, his mother could not compete with Rong Xiu's mother. Now, he could not compete with Rong Xiu. He had long known that his father treated Rong Xiu differently, but now it seemed that it was even more serious than he had imagined. Whatever Rong Xiu wanted, as long as he opened his mouth, Imperial Father would give it to him. As for him, he had been trembling with fear and working diligently for so many years in the position of Crown Prince. In the end, he had not obtained any benefits at all. Instead, he had been publicly humiliated by his imperial father and had almost been deposed. How could he feel at ease? After protecting Rong Jin's crown prince position, the empress finally heaved a sigh of relief. When she heard that Emperor Jiawen had betrothed Rong Xiu and Chu Luiyue, she felt even more fortunate. If that's the case, Chu Luiyue can't bewitch Rong Jin anymore. From then on, Rong Jin should completely give up and stop wasting time and energy on Chu Luiyue. She glanced from the corner of her eye and discovered that Rong Jin was looking at Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiu despondently. She closed her eyes in frustration and tried her best to make her voice sound gentle and calm. Your Majesty, look at the Crown Prince. Crown Prince Rong Jin is impulsive, unreasonable, and impudent. From today onwards, he will reflect on his mistakes in Crown Prince Mansion. Without my orders, he's not allowed to come out. Nobody else is allowed to enter and visit him. This was equivalent to house arrest. Even though he was also under house arrest as a punishment previously, most people did not know about it. But this time, in front of so many people, Rong Jin had completely lost his face. However, the Empress was already very satisfied with this outcome. As long as Rong Jin was not deposed, everything could be restarted. Crown Prince, hurry up and thank him. The Empress glared at Rong Jin warningly. Rong Jin then recovered his senses. Thank you for your forgiveness, father. Emperor Jiawen felt annoyed just by looking at him. He grunted coldly and turned to leave. The Empress and the rest hurriedly followed. Eunuch Min first congratulated Rong Xiu, Chu Luiyue, and the rest before walking to Rong Jin's side and persuading him. Your Highness, His Majesty, and Her Majesty have already left. You must be tired today. Quickly go back and rest. Then, he signaled the people beside him with his eyes and quickly walked away. After walking a distance, Eunuch Min turned back to take a look. He waved his horsetail whisk and shook his head. Even if this crown prince keeps his position today, he won't be able to have a stable life in the future. Crown Prince Mansion's people hurriedly went forward and wanted to help Rong Jin up. Rong Jin then realized that there were countless pairs of eyes staring at him from the surroundings. Mockery, and disdain. A strong sense of humiliation surged in his heart, and his face turned green. Chu Xianmin walked over. "Your Highness, let's go back," Rong Jin pushed her away. "Get lost." Then, he hurriedly left with indignation. Chu Xianmin was pushed to the side, but she didn't say anything and just followed him silently. Their figures quickly disappeared from the crowd's sight. Quite a few people secretly sighed. I really didn't expect the Crown Prince, who was once so favored by the Emperor, to have such a day. That's right. Even if he's still the Crown Prince, it's hard to say what will happen in the future after what happened today. In comparison, the third prince is more outstanding. At least, he has outstanding military achievements. He's not like the Crown Prince, who goes back on his words and goes back on his words. I think it's quite a pity for Chu Xianmin. The third Missy of the Chu family used to be so glorious, but now she has fallen to such a state. It seems like the Crown Prince doesn't treat her well either. Everyone has their own fate. I heard that she bullied Chu Luiyue quite a bit back then. Now, it's karma. Chu Luiyue looked at Rongxiu. Her gaze slowly swept across the wounds on his body, but she still felt terrible in her heart. Rongxiu seemed to know what she was thinking. His pale lips curled up slightly, and he nodded lightly. As long as the result was achieved, everything was worth it. Chu Luiyue's heart ached, but her entire being was immersed in an indescribable sense of relief and happiness. It turned out that there was someone in this world who was willing to do anything for her. Chu Ning watched from the side and narrowed his eyes with a complicated expression. It turns out that Prince Li has long liked you, In the past, he could not understand why Prince Li repeatedly helped him and his daughter. Now, it seemed like he finally had an answer. Thinking about it carefully, Prince Li was not a bad choice, but it was a pity that his body was a little weak. However, compared to people like Rong Jin, he was much better. He walked toward Rongxiu. "Your Highness," Rongxiu smiled warmly. "Lord Chu Ning, I'm already engaged to you, You don't have to be so polite." Chu Ning hesitated for a moment and finally said, "There are a few things that I want to say in private. You're not allowed to bully Lu Yu." Before Chu Ning could finish speaking, Yi Zhiding had already spoken. He had a rare look of seriousness on his face as he looked at Rongxiu warningly. "She's my only personal disciple. If you dare to let her down, don't blame me for being rude to you." Chu Ning was speechless. "Damn, someone else has already snatched my lines." Rongxiu's smile deepened. "Of course. Don't worry, Elder Yi and Lord Chu Ning." Yi Zhiding wanted to say something, but Elder Wei Yun suddenly exclaimed. "Director. Oh no. That ferocious beast is gone." Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. He hurriedly walked toward Mu Qinghe. From the beginning to the end, Mu Qinghe had been watching coldly from the sidelines, but Yi Zhiding didn't mind. As the envoy of the Tianling dynasty, Mu Qinghe naturally had no reason to get involved in this. However, he was powerful and had been watching from the side. Perhaps he knew something. When Yi Zhiding walked over, Hong Yao was squatting on Mu Qinghe's shoulder, casually combing its feathers. "Vice Admiral Mu, I have a few questions. Can I ask your fiend?" Mu Qinghe glanced at Hong Yao. Hong Yao then stopped and sized Yi Zhiding up. Yi Zhiding coughed. "I wonder if your injuries were caused by that ferocious beast?" Hong Yao glared at him. Then, it angrily turned its head away. "Didn't I just suffer some minor injuries? I'm basically healed now, alright? Why did he have to mention this?" Mu Qinghe was expressionless. "That's right." Yi Zhiding asked again. "Then, do you know what happened to it?" Hong Yao shook its head frantically. Yi Zhiding didn't quite believe it. Really? Then, at least you should know if it's dead or alive, right? This green sparrow is a high-level fiend and is noble and proud. How can it let the matter rest so easily after it's injured? Hong Yao still shook its head. In the end, it simply buried its head under its wings and refused to speak. Seeing it like this, Yi Zhiding knew that there wouldn't be any results even if he continued to ask, so he could only give up. Thank you, Vice Admiral Mu. It seems like we have to investigate this matter from another angle. Mu Qing has suddenly said, Jui Jui is in the Jui Palace. Jiuyou Tower was built to suppress that ferocious beast, right? Yi Zhiding was stunned for a moment before nodding. That ferocious beast has already disappeared, and Jiuyou Tower's collapse is no longer important. What are you worried about? The most important thing is that the pit of heavenly origins below is still there, isn't it? Mu Qing's voice was still cold. Yi Zhiding's head hurt. Vice Admiral Mu is right, but, however, Jiuyou Tower had already existed since Tianlu Academy existed. Now that it was destroyed, as the dean, he was still worried. That ferocious beast is, many thoughts flashed across Yi Zhiding's mind, but he could only sigh in the end. Since things have already come to this, there's no other way. As he spoke, he turned to look at Elder Wei Yun and the rest. Use the Xian formation to seal this place and clean it up as soon as possible. Everyone hurriedly responded. Sun Zhongyan hesitated for a moment and still asked worriedly, Senior Marshal Uncle, why are you still here? What should we do after that, Uncle Master? Without Jiuyou Tower, the power in the pit of heavenly origins below is still unbearable for most of the students. Don't worry about this. After some time, we can just build a 9-story tower here. This new 9-story tower definitely won't be as powerful as the old Jiuyou Tower, but it can at least provide some space for the students to cultivate. Since that ferocious beast is no longer here, there's no need to be too worried. Everyone looked at each other and realized that this was the best solution, so they could only agree. Then, Sun Zhongyan quickly let the students leave, leaving only the elders and teachers to deal with the ruins together. Mu Qinghe didn't want to stay any longer and turned to leave. However, when she walked past Chu Luyue, she looked at her meaningfully. Your ability seems to be stronger than I thought. Chu Luyue looked calm. Vice Admiral Mu is overpraising me. You know very well whether I'm overpraising you or not. After all, not everyone can rely on the Yuan instrument to reach the 6th level. Mu Qinghe's eyes were filled with scrutiny. Chu Luyue smiled. Actually, this is all thanks to Dumpling. Lu Yu is just a stage 2 warrior. He's really not enough. After the battle with Hang Jingshua in the Qing Jiao competition, everyone knew that she had an unusual blood ferret. Mu Qinghe's gaze flashed past Dumpling, who was on Chu Liyue's shoulder, and she suddenly said, I feel that your aura seems to be stronger than before. I seem to have seen the aura of your magical beast somewhere before. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Chapter 315. Chu Luyue raised her eyebrows in surprise. Oh. Where did Vice Admiral Mu see a magical beast similar to Dumpling? If they were fated to meet, Dumpling must have hit it off very well. Mu Qinghe stared at Chu Luyue, as if he was considering whether she meant what she said. It's the magical beast of an old friend of mine. But it's not a blood ferret, but... He paused, and a cold smile suddenly appeared at the corner of his mouth. Forget it, it's already dead, there's no need to mention it. Chu Liyue's heart twitched fiercely. She heard her own voice, that's a pity. It must be very cute if it's similar to Dumpling. But why did the magical beast die? Did it die in battle? Mu Qinghe's smile slowly disappeared, and his expression was as cold as ice. It's just that its master died, so it was buried along with him. But because the magical beast was very strong, it probably knew that it wouldn't be easy to die, so it chose to self-destruct. Every word was like a sharp knife, ruthlessly stabbing into Chu Liyue's heart. Although she had already expected it, she still couldn't accept it when she heard it with her own ears. Oh, right, That old friend of mine is the one I said you were similar to. Mu Qinghe's face was expressionless, and his tone was very calm, as if he was talking about something very ordinary. Chu Luiyue forced her lips to move, but her limbs were cold, and it was almost impossible for her to move. Is that so? Cough cough, cough cough. Rong Xiu, who was next to her, suddenly coughed violently. Chu Luiyue quickly looked over. Rong. Your Highness Princely, are you okay? Rong Xiu finally stopped, and his lips were pale as he smiled. Nothing, just a little tired, Chu Luiyue immediately said, then I'll send you back to the Prince Li's residence. A faint smile appeared on Rong Xiu's face. Thank you very much. Chu Ning was also a little worried. I will go with you. After saying that, they planned to leave together. Mu Qinghe was still standing there, looking at Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue took a step forward, then turned his head and asked, What's the matter? Vice Admiral Mu, is there anything else? Mu Qinghe paused and didn't say anything. She turned around and left. Chu Ning looked at his back view, walked to Chu Luiyue's side, and whispered, Did you offend Vice Admiral Mu before? Chu Luiyue curled her lips nonchalantly. Perhaps. But that was not important. After Emperor Jiawen and the others left, Rong Xiu and the rest quickly returned. Seeing that the matter was over, the people who had gathered together went back to their own places. Tianlu Academy became deserted again. Yi Zhiding looked at the ruins of Joyo Tower and rubbed his glabella with a headache. The imperial city has really become more and more chaotic recently, Elder Yi. A voice was suddenly heard. Yi Zhiding looked up and quickly furrowed his brows. Fu Yunshan. Qinghan. He found a familiar student and asked. I think she left just now. Maybe she went back to the inn. Qinghan thought about it and agreed. She must have felt terrible when she saw Rong Xiu and Chu Luiyue being betrothed. It's normal for her to go back. At this time, it's good for her to be alone. Qinghan took a deep breath. Let's go. Digression, tomorrow will still be updated in the afternoon and evening. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 316. Chu Luiyue and Chu Ning followed Rong Xiu back to the Prince Li's mansion. The people of the Prince Li's mansion seemed to have received the news, and their attitude towards Chu Ning and his daughter was particularly attentive and eager, as if they were welcoming their own family. This made Chu Ning a little unaccustomed. After sitting in the Prince Li's mansion for a while, Chu Ning wanted to let Rong Xiu have a good rest, so he left with Chu Luiyue. Rong Xiu sent a carriage to send the two back. At first, Chu Ning didn't want to go through so much trouble, but later, he was really stubborn and had to agree. The father and daughter got on the carriage and sat on each side. The two looked at each other silently. Chu Ning looked at Chu Luiyue calmly, and hesitated to speak, as if he was thinking about how to speak. Father, if you have something to say, just say it. Chu Luiyue said softly. Chu Ning hesitated for a moment before saying, between you and Prince Li. Is there something between you? Chu Luiyue laughed, what do you mean? Chu Ning paused, that is. Did you already know that he was interested in you? Yes. Chu Luiyue didn't intend to hide this point. As you think, Prince Li and I did have feelings for each other long ago. That's why today's marriage was granted. Although he had already thought of it, Chu Ning couldn't help but be surprised when he heard it with his own ears. When did this happen? Could it be that, when he saved you, Prince Li saved me first, and we didn't know each other at that time? Chu Ning breathed a sigh of relief. In other words, the two gradually got to know each other after Prince Li returned. In this case, it was easier for him to accept. Do you really like Prince Li? Chu Ning stared into Chu Luiyue's eyes and asked with a serious expression. Chu Luiyue nodded slightly. Chu Ning was stunned for a while before he murmured. That's good. That's good. His expression was a little complicated, as if he was sad and happy at the same time. He understood Yu's character very well. If she was not really interested in Princely, then today's bestowment of marriage, she would absolutely not agree. Princely is a good person. At the very least, he was much stronger than Crown Prince Rongjin. In the past, Yu didn't have good taste. She liked Rongjin for many years and suffered a lot of humiliation and grievances because of him. But things were different now. He could see that Li Wang valued Yu very much. It could even be said that he regarded her as a treasure. He could finally rest assured. It's just Li Wang's body. Have you checked Li Wang's pulse? Do you have any way to help me recuperate? Princely had died of illness when he was still in his mother's womb. He had invited countless celestial physicians since he was young, but there had been no improvement. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been sent to Minghua Tianshan to recuperate for so many years. Chu Luiyue looked at Chu Ning's worried face and felt warm and amused at the same time. Father, don't worry. I'll do my best. No matter what happens to Prince Li's health in the future, I will always take good care of him. Chu Ning sighed and nodded. That's good. He had once hoped that Yu could marry an ordinary and healthy person and live a peaceful life. However, Yu had already displayed shocking talent. She definitely wouldn't be as simple and ordinary as an ordinary person in the future. If your mother was still around, she would definitely be very happy. Deep nostalgia flashed across Chu Ning's eyes. Chu Liuyue's heart ached. For so many years, Chu Ning had to be both a father and a mother to bring up Chu Luiyue painstakingly. No one could tell how sad he felt. She leaned forward and held Chu Ning's hand. The father-daughter duo sat in silence for a long time, but the atmosphere was warm and harmonious. Pack! The crisp sound of a slap resounded in the room. The Empress looked coldly at Rongjin, who was standing in front of her. You're really crazy today. Rongjin lowered his head and didn't say a word. I've long said that you shouldn't have any ideas about Chu Luiyue. Are you treating all of it as passing wind? When I saw you lying on the bed earlier, I thought you were just talking nonsense because of your fever. I didn't expect you to run over today and openly snatch Chu Luiyue from Rongxiu. The Empress's finger was almost poking Rongjin's head. Your father was right about one thing today. You're really tired of being the crown prince. Rongjin wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and there seemed to be a fire burning in his heart. He finally couldn't help but retort. She's mine. Why did I? You've already broken off the engagement with her. The Empress suddenly raised her voice, and her gaze was as sharp as a knife as it ruthlessly scraped across Rongjin's body. Don't forget that you were the one who brought it up. What did you say back then? You said that you had to break off the engagement with Chu Luiyue and sever ties with her no matter what price I had to pay. Great, it's only been a few months, but you're acting like you're possessed. What do you want others to think of you, the crown prince? Do you know how much effort I spent back then to push you to the position of crown prince? The Empress's voice was already a little hysterical. Rongjin looked up and saw that her face was contorted, and her eyes were filled with deep resentment. He was shocked and then realized that the Empress's emotions were exceptionally agitated today. He took a deep breath in and lowered his voice, still feeling indignant. But why does it have to be Rongxiu? How can that good-for-nothing compare to me? Look at him, he won't be able to stand if he takes 2 more steps. Once he thought that Chu Luiyue was actually betrothed to such a person, he was filled with disgust. The Empress's face darkened, and she suddenly sneered. Why? Why do you think? Rongxiu personally begged your father, so how can your father not agree? You're better than him in every aspect, but who asked him to have a vixen mother? She's been dead for so many years, but she's still haunting me. She couldn't win against that woman back then, and now, her son can't win against that woman's son. Doesn't she hate her? Rongjin then understood that the Empress was like this because she remembered the people and things back then. The Empress seemed to have noticed that she had lost her composure. She took a deep breath in and forced herself to calm down. Anyway, it wasn't easy for you to keep your position today. Your father can tolerate you once or twice, but there definitely won't be a third time. Rongjin pressed his lips against each other. I know my mistake. What's the use of knowing your mistake? You have to think of a way to make up for it. Rongjin's eyes lit up. Mother, do you have a way? The Empress stared at him with a deadly gaze. Of course, I have a way. However, you have to swear that you'll never mention Chu Luiyue again from now on. You'll completely give up on this thought. Rongjin was stunned. But mother, she's the only one I like. The Empress looked at him warningly. Rongjin subconsciously swallowed his remaining words. After a long time, he clenched his fists so tightly that they almost broke. Yes. The Empress heaved a sigh of relief, and her expression became gentler as she picked up the teacup at the side. The only way for you to stabilize your position as the crown prince is to marry Situ Xingqian. Digression: in the car, mobile users can continue to browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 317. What? Rongjin was dazed. Country Xing Luo previously mentioned to your father that they want you to marry Situ Xingqian. Situ Xingqian has a noble status and is very doted on. If you can marry her, you'll have a strong support. The Empress sipped her tea and coldly glanced at Rongjin. If it weren't for this, why do you think your father let you off today? Rongjin knitted his brows. But Situ Xingqian. Is this the only way? You're still unwilling? The Empress put down her teacup with a bang and sneered. No matter how you look at it, Situ Xingqian is an extremely good choice for the crown prince. What else are you unhappy about? Even though she didn't really like Situ Xingqian, she had been in the palace for many years and instinctively felt that Situ Xingqian wasn't simple. However, she couldn't care about that now. Rongjin kept quiet. He was also very clear that his current situation was worrying, and Situ Xingqian was indeed the only person who could help him stabilize his position. Think of a way to contact Situ Xingqian. It's best if you can quickly win her favor. This way, things will be much smoother in the future. Rongjin knitted his brows. But I'm already under house arrest, and I can't go out at all. Besides, the Qingjiao competition has already ended, and they'll leave tomorrow. What kind of problem is this? As long as you want to, all these can be solved. The Empress didn't care. Unless you really don't want to be the crown prince anymore. Rongjin clenched his teeth. I understand. Chu Ning and Chu Luiyue returned home together. When they reached the door, the two of them saw a page boy waiting at the door. Chu Luiyue squinted her eyes. She knew this page boy. He's from the Chu family. When the page boy saw Chu Ning and his daughter coming down from the horse carriage, he hurriedly ran over with a respectful expression. Lord Chu Ning, Big Missy, you're finally back. Chu Luiyue and Chu Ning looked at each other. One wouldn't visit a temple for no reason. It was obvious why the Chu family sent someone over. Mu Teng? Why are you here? The manservant called Mu Teng nodded and bowed with a fawning expression. He took out an invitation card from his bosom and handed it over respectfully. He, Lord Chu Ning still remembers me. The first elder said that he would like to invite you back to his residence. Here is the invitation. Chu Ning smiled faintly. Back then, you had carry water for you for 3 months, causing her hands to develop frostbite. How could I forget about you? The smile on Mu Ting's face froze abruptly, and he felt extremely embarrassed. This. It was all my fault back then. Please be magnanimous and let me off. This lowly one apologizes to you. Seeing that Chu Ning and Chu Li's expressions did not change, he gritted his teeth and ruthlessly slapped his own face. It's all my fault. It's all my fault. I deserve to die. Damn it. His cheek quickly became red and swollen, leaving behind a clear palm print. Chu Ning didn't say anything, so he didn't dare to stop. It was only when Chu Liuyue's mouth was filled with blood that Chu Ning sneered and led her toward the door. Seeing that the two were about to leave, Mu Ting panicked and hurriedly chased after them. Lord Chu Ning, I beg you to accept this invitation card. Otherwise, this lowly one won't be able to explain himself when I return. Chu Ning didn't want to pay any attention to him, not even giving him an extra glance. Mu Ting simply knelt down and kowtowed. Lord Chu Ning, I beg you. Eldest young miss, please persuade Lord Chu Ning. The corners of Chu Liuyue's mouth curled up slightly as he took the invitation card and opened it with interest. This letter was personally written by the first elder, Chu Shao, and the wording was very polite. It was clear that he wanted to reconcile. Chu Ning frowned as a trace of disgust flashed across his eyes. What's so good about this kind of thing? It will only dirty your eyes. Chu Liyue blinked at him and then looked at Mu Ting. You're saying that if we don't deliver this invitation card today, we'll die when we return? Mu Ting said gratefully. That's right. Eldest young miss, that's great. Just take it well. Chu Liyue smiled and stuffed the invitation card back into Mu Ting's hands. Have a good trip. I won't send you off. Mu Ting was dumbfounded. Then he realized something and his face paled. Eldest young miss, my father and I have already completely severed ties with the Chu clan. I really can't accept being called eldest young Mississippi. With that, Chu Liyue and Chu Ning turned to leave. Mu Ting's face was filled with despair. Seeing the two figures about to disappear behind the door, he anxiously shouted. Lord Chu Ning. The first elder said that even if you don't want to return to the Chu clan, please consider the patriarch. Chu Ning stopped in his tracks, a trace of struggle flashing across his face. Chu Liyue glanced at him. Seeing this, Mu Ting felt that there was hope and shouted again. The patriarch values you the most. If he comes out of seclusion and sees the Chu clan in this state, he will definitely be very disappointed. Chu Liuyue's mouth twitched. Now he was talking about this. When the Chu clan bullied him and his daughter, they didn't consider disappointing the patriarch at all. A trace of hesitation flashed across Chu Ning's heart, but it disappeared in an instant. Let's go. He didn't turn back. He pulled Chu Liyue and was about to leave. Chu Liyue sighed softly. Father, why don't you go back and take a look? Chu Ning looked up in surprise. Chu Liyue patted his arm lightly. She didn't have any feelings for the Chu clan. The Chu clan and the patriarch of the Chu clan were not important to her. But Chu Ning was different. After all, the patriarch of the Chu clan was his father. It was impossible to say that there were no ties between them. Chu Liyue knew very well that the reason Chu Ning had severed ties with the Chu clan was largely because of her. Mu Ting's words didn't mean anything to her, but it inevitably made Chu Ning waver. No matter what, doesn't want to see father unhappy. She said softly. Chu Ning immediately understood what she meant, and his heart warmed. After hesitating for a moment, he finally said, Don't worry. Since we've completely severed ties with the Chu clan, we won't go back no matter what. Father will be back soon. In the future, I can give the patriarch an explanation. Chu Liyue nodded. Then I'll wait for you at home. When Mu Ting heard that Chu Ning agreed to go to the Chu clan, she felt that her life had been saved. Thank you, Lord Chu Ning. Thank you, Ms. Liyue. Chu Ning and Chu Liyue exchanged a few words, then left with Mu Ting. Chu Liyue watched Chu Ning leave. Only when he couldn't be seen did she turn around, step through the door, and enter the courtyard. She walked towards her room. When she reached the door, she placed her hand on the door, intending to push it open. Suddenly, she paused, and a cold light flashed in her eyes. The next moment, she suddenly retreated. A black shadow broke through the door. In the blink of an eye, it rushed in front of Chu Liyue. Before Chu Liyue could see the other party's face, she was caught in a huge net. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 318. Chu Liuyue's vision instantly turned dark. This net was very strange. She was trapped in it, and all the light was blocked outside. She couldn't see anything. Then, she felt herself being pulled up. She was about to speak when a hoarse and threatening voice sounded by her ear. "If you want to die faster, just call for help." Chu Liuyue's lips moved, but she didn't say anything. Although she couldn't see the other party's face, this aura seemed familiar, right? This person is the one following Rongjin around. Previously, Rongjin came to find me privately and attacked me because of this person. Rongjin once said that after the Qing Jiao competition ended, she would personally bring me to the forest outside the imperial city. I didn't expect Rongjin to be so impatient that she wouldn't even wait for a day. Chu Liyue took out a dagger and tried to cut the net. In the darkness, she heard an ear-piercing scratching sound. Chu Liyue was shocked. There's actually an extremely strong barrier in this net. Don't waste your effort. With your current abilities, it's impossible for you to get out of here. That strange and hoarse voice sounded again with a strong sense of mockery. Chu Liyue thought for a while and decided to just close her eyes and wait quietly. Rongjin wanted to find trouble with me, and it's just nice. I also want to end this matter once and for all. Chu Liyue couldn't see the situation outside and could only feel herself being brought away quickly. She silently traced their route in her heart and realized that they were indeed heading out of the imperial city. She didn't know what method this person used, but the entire journey was very smooth and didn't attract anyone's attention. When they left the city gates, Chu Liyue could even hear the guards' interrogations. But still, no one noticed that something was wrong. She was brought out of the city just like that. After leaving the imperial city, that person obviously relaxed a little and sped up again. Suddenly, she felt a weight on her shoulder. It was Tuan Zi who suddenly came out. It rubbed against Chu Liyue's neck and seemed a little restless. Chu Liyue held it in his arms and gently comforted it. She was sure that Dumpling could bite through the net, but she had no intention of doing so at the moment. Dumpling seemed to be aware of her thoughts and immediately nestled in her arms obediently. After about an hour, that person finally stopped. Chu Liyue immediately patted Dumpling's butt and told it to go back. Then, he held his breath and waited. Whoosh! The net was suddenly ripped open. A dazzling light instantly shone down. Chu Liyue subconsciously squinted his eyes to adapt to the change in light. Chu Liyue. A high and mighty voice came from behind. Chu Liyue looked back. It was Rongjin. Are you familiar with this place? Rongjin crossed her arms and asked coldly. Chu Liyue looked around. It was lush and verdant in all directions. This was indeed the forest outside the imperial capital. She pondered for a moment as if she was recalling before nodding gently. It's a little familiar. Back then, I was almost killed by the people Chu Xianmin sent here. Rongjin's gaze suddenly changed. The place on your map isn't here. Chu Liyue smiled bitterly. Yes. But that's where I went after I escaped. At that time, they knocked me out and brought me here, intending to kill me. Coincidentally, I woke up at that time, so I escaped. Rongjin looked at Chu Liyue suspiciously. You better not let me find out what tricks you're up to. During the Qing Jiao competition, Chu Liyue performed very well and displayed abilities that exceeded everyone's expectations. She could not help but be wary. Chu Liyue shrugged. This place is deserted. I know I'm not your match, so I'll cooperate. As long as you let me go in the end, everything else is negotiable. Rongjin sneered. You know what's good for you. Chu Liyue did not say anything and looked down slightly. Bring me there now. Rongjin gave Elder Meng, who was standing behind Chu Liyue, a look. Elder Meng, you must watch her closely. Fourth princess, don't worry. As this hoarse voice rang in her ears, Chu Liyue suddenly felt a cold wind coming from behind her. Her eyes flickered, and she immediately became alert. However, it was only for a moment before she restrained her impulse and pretended not to notice anything as she stood there. Swoosh! A rope as thick as a thumb was tightly wrapped around her neck. Elder Meng was holding the other end of the rope in his hands. A fierce look flashed across Chu Yoyue's eyes. She had never been humiliated like this before. Behave yourself, Rongjin shouted. Otherwise, this rope can take your life any time. Chu Luyue suppressed the anger in her heart and nodded lightly. I know. Lead the way in front. Chu Luyue took a deep breath and took a step forward. The moment she moved, the rope around her neck moved as well. Elder Meng and Rongjin followed behind. Chu Luyue finally managed to persuade Dumpling not to come out and continued walking forward step by step. Rongjin couldn't help but chuckle at this scene. If the people in the Imperial City see this scene, their jaws will definitely drop. The famous Chu Luyue actually has such a servile appearance. Haha. Rongjin was delighted. So what if he came in first in the Qing Jiao competition? So what if he has a Daijing Yuan meridian? Isn't he like a dog in front of me? I heard that the Crown Prince and Princely even fought in front of father to snatch you. Ha, if they see you like this, they will regret it so much. Chu Luyue, you are really capable. You didn't say or do anything, but you almost made father remove the Crown Prince. Chu Luyue didn't have much of an expression. I've already cut all ties with the Crown Prince. I didn't expect today's incident either. If fourth princess is still angry because of this, angry? Why would I be angry? Can the Crown Prince blame others for his incompetence? Rongjin said sarcastically. Chu Luyue paused. That's strange. Rongjin and Rongjin were both born of the Empress, and they always had a good relationship. Why did they suddenly become like this? From her tone, it seems like she can't wait for Rongjin to be removed. When my Pearl of Essence recovers, one day, I'll let mother know that Rongjin is a hopeless case. I am much more outstanding than him. Upon hearing her words, Chu Luyue could basically confirm that Rongjin and Rongjin did have a conflict. However, she didn't know why. Just as she was thinking about this, she suddenly felt the rope around her neck being pulled tight. She held her breath, and she almost fell. She hurriedly turned around and saw Rongjin laughing heartily. Ha ha ha. How interesting. Elder Meng, why didn't I think of such a way to do this in the past? Chu Luyue, why don't you bark twice like a dog, and I'll let bygones be bygones. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 319. Chu Luyue stared at Rongjin quietly. Fourth princess, this joke isn't funny at all. Rongjin's laughter stopped abruptly, and she looked at Chu Luyue. She saw a pair of clear, black jade-like eyes staring at her. That pair of eyes was calm and unperturbed, but it inexplicably made one feel fearful. A chill seemed to emerge from the bottom of her heart, causing her to shudder. Realizing that she was actually afraid of Chu Luyue, Rongjin was enraged, and she jerked the rope violently. What are you looking at? If you keep looking, I'll dig out your eyeballs. This time, Chu Luyue pulled the rope first and didn't let her do as she pleased. Rongjin tugged a few times and realized that it didn't budge. She felt even more embarrassed and flew into a rage. Elder Meng. Teach her a lesson. Fourth princess. Chu Luyue suddenly spoke, and his lips curved up without any trace of a smile. Did you spend so much effort to bring me out just to teach me a lesson? Rongjin was taken aback. I know that it's easy for you to kill me here. Perhaps no one will ever find out that it was you, fourth princess, who did it. But are you sure this is what you want? If I die, your Pearl of Essence will never recover. How dare you threaten me? Rongjin's face was a little sinister. She had already suffered enough over the past few days, and now, even Chu Luyue dared to speak to her like this. She quickly took 2 steps forward, rushed to Chu Luyue, and raised her hand to slap her face. It doesn't matter if I die. I'll kill you, Chu Luiyue said slowly. But my father and Prince Li definitely won't let this go. Rongjin seemed to have heard a joke. Ha! Just based on your useless father and that sickly person? Of course, it's not just them. Chu Luiyue stared into Rongjin's eyes and smiled slightly. There's also Vice Admiral Mu. Rongjin froze, and her hand, which was in midair, couldn't fall. Vice Admiral Mu has only chosen me to accompany him to the Tianling dynasty. If something happens to me, what do you think Vice Admiral Mu will do? Rongjin gritted her teeth. She had almost forgotten about this. Elder Meng tried to persuade him. Fourth Princess, we can't afford to offend Vice Admiral Mu, of course I know. Rongjin was furious. It would have been better if she hadn't mentioned this. Now that she mentioned it, she felt even more disgusted with Chu Luiyue. What right did Chu Luiyue have to be chosen? She had only said a few words and was humiliated in public. However, she couldn't do anything to Chu Luiyue. Even though Rongjin was spoiled and willful, she wasn't brainless. Although he was about to go crazy from anger, after thinking about it carefully, what Chu Luiyue said was not unreasonable. Right now, it was more important to restore his pill of origin. As for the rest, it would be the same in the future. Thinking of this, Rongjin suppressed the anger in her heart and sternly shouted, I'll let you off this time. Hurry up and leave. Chu Luiyue glanced at her, turned around, and continued walking forward. Her words seemed to make Rongjin sober up a little. On the rest of the journey, Rongjin didn't cause trouble most of the time. The few of them walked forward calmly. After walking for more than an hour, Rongjin's legs were sore from all the walking. She impatiently asked, What's wrong? How far is it? Chu Luiyue, are you trying to fool me? Chu Luiyue finally stopped. It's just in front. Rongjin immediately looked forward. In the lush forest not far away, there was a lake with white fog rising from it. The surroundings were quiet, and the sun shone down. The fog on the lake's surface made it look like a fairyland. She couldn't help but take a few steps forward and shockingly realized that the white fog floating above the lake was actually thick force. This is... She widened her eyes and looked at the scene in front of her in disbelief. There's actually such a place outside of the imperial city? As the fourth princess, she was doted on. Not to mention the imperial city, she had even been to half of the good places in country Yaochen. But she had never heard of this place before. The force here is very thick and very gentle. It's indeed a good place to cultivate. Even Elder Meng couldn't help but praise it. Chu Luiyue coughed. I ran here with much difficulty back then and coincidentally met that mysterious man. This should be his territory, but I didn't know if he would appear today. Rongjin looked at the lake in amazement. She took a deep breath and felt as if her organs were flowing smoothly. This is really a good place to cultivate. You're honest. She threw the other end of the rope to Old Meng and rushed to the lakeside in excitement. Up close, the lake was even clearer and more beautiful. She looked around and realized that there was no one else here other than the few of them. Is that mysterious man not here today? Elder Meng, is there anyone nearby? Elder Meng shook his head. No. He didn't sense anyone's aura. That's strange. Why is there no one watching over this place? Rongjin walked a few steps around the lake with a confused look. It would be great if this lake belonged to me. Cultivating here would definitely be twice the result with half the effort. It's a pity that my pearl of essence is broken now, so I can't cultivate here. If that's the case, it will only be harmful. Thinking of this, Rongjin's heart itched. Chu Luiyue, since that mysterious man was willing to help you, do you have a way to contact him? Chu Luiyue shook his head. How can such a person be controlled by me? Even I don't know what he looks like. Rongjin didn't expect Chu Luiyue to know, so she was disappointed when she heard this. Such a strong presence indeed wouldn't be restricted to one place. However, they had already come all the way here. If they returned empty-handed, wouldn't that be too shameful? Suddenly, her eyes lit up. Oh right. Previously, you said that you met that person when you were in danger. If you encounter a similar situation now, will he appear again? Chu Luiyue knitted his brows. Fourth princess, what do you mean? I don't mean anything. Rongjin slowly walked to Chu Luiyue and sized her up with ill intentions. I just want to give it a try. Don't worry, I won't really want you to die, fourth princess, you think too highly of me. Chu Luiyue said lightly. Rongjin sneered. You're no longer the same as before. Even Vice Admiral Mu favors you. How can I say that I think highly of you? You just have to. Just as her hand was about to strangle Chu Luiyue's neck, a strange sound came from the lake. Rongjin immediately turned around. Under the white fog, she could vaguely see circles of ripples spreading from the center of the lake to the surroundings. She couldn't hide her excitement as she hurriedly walked over. But just as she reached the side of the lake, a huge white figure suddenly rushed out of the lake. It was heading straight for her. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 320. Ah! Elder Meng, save me! Rongjin exclaimed as she sensed the incoming danger and immediately called for help. Elder Meng already knew that something was amiss when the white figure broke out of the water and immediately rushed forward. But even though he was fast, the other party was even faster. Swoosh! The sound of something being cut was heard. The next moment, Rongjin's body flew backward. She fell harshly to the ground. The front of her shirt was quickly dyed red with blood. Fourth princess. Elder Meng was shocked. He looked up. However, what appeared in front of them was actually a muscular white lion. It quickly rushed out of the water and flew in the air, exuding a strong suppressive aura. This was clearly a high-level fiend. Elder Meng's heart was in his mouth. Even if he was a stage 5 warrior, it wouldn't be easy for him to deal with this fiend. He wanted to go forward and save Rongjin, but the scary white lion didn't budge an inch. It was impossible to break through it head-on. Rongjin, who was lying on the ground, kept wailing. She didn't even see what the other party looked like before she was beaten to the ground. Her organs were all squeezed into a ball, and a few of her ribs seemed to be broken. She couldn't even move. After her pearl of essence was broken, she lost all her strength and couldn't even defeat a normal adult man. She was no different from a good-for-nothing. How could she withstand such a fierce attack? Elder Meng. Elder Meng, Rongjin's face was pale as she kept spitting out blood. She struggled to get up. But the moment she moved, it hurt like hell. Besides, she couldn't exert any strength in many parts of her body. Roar! The white lion roared at the sky. Rongjin trembled in fear. Elder Meng suddenly realized something and turned to look at Chu Luiyue. It's you, swoosh! Chu Luiyue had an extremely sharp dagger in his hand, and he slashed at the rope harshly. Elder Meng laughed mockingly. This rope is made of gold silk and white iron. You're too naive if you want to cut it with a mere dagger. Before he could finish speaking, Chu Luiyue raised the dagger and cut the rope. The cut was neat and tidy. It looked extremely easy. Chu Luiyue's lips curled up slightly. It seems that this thing of yours isn't that great. Elder Meng's anger burned as he gathered origin power in his palm. Then, he swung it out. Boom! A ball of extremely pure origin power rushed towards Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue tapped the ground with the tip of his foot, and jumped away as light as a swallow. At the same time, he shouted. Dumpling! A small red figure suddenly flashed by. Then, he went straight for that ball of origin power. Puff! It rushed in, and its figure was instantly engulfed by the light of the origin power. Elder Meng sneered. You overestimate yourself. He had long heard that Chu Luiyue had a strange blood ferret that directly swallowed Heng Jingchua's force. But he was different from Heng Jingchua. He was a rank 5 warrior and was much stronger than Hang Jingshua. Chu Luiyue was delusional to think that he could use the same trick he used on Hang Jingshua to deal with him. It was simply wishful thinking. But at this moment, a hole suddenly appeared in that ball of dazzling origin power. A furry tail poked out. Elder Meng suddenly froze. In the next moment, he saw that the ball of origin power suddenly collapsed from the middle. That blood ferret opened its mouth and sucked hard. The origin power turned into a stream of light and entered its body. Elder Meng was completely stunned. Elder Meng, save me. Rongzhen's shrill scream brought Elder Meng back to his senses. He turned back and saw that the white lion had already raised its claws and slammed down again. Boom! A strong gust of wind suddenly blew. Rongzhen's body flew up again and fell to the ground in an even more tragic manner. This time, there were more bloodstains on her body, making her look even more ashen. Fourth Princess. Elder Meng was extremely anxious as he hurriedly rushed over. But this time, he still couldn't get close. That white lion was extremely strong, and it was extremely easy for it to stop him. Seeing that Rongzhen was tortured beyond recognition, Elder Meng angrily glared at the white lion but was shocked to see that Chu Luiyue was already standing beside the white lion. More importantly, that white lion seemed to be very docile in front of her. Her hand was placed on the white lion's head, gently caressing it. Shue shue, well done. Chu Luiyue praised it sincerely. Ever since Rongzhen secretly found her, she had already started planning this counterattack. Since Rongzhen said that she would bring her here, she would definitely do it. It was just a matter of time. She had already told Shue Shue to wait here and planned to come after the Qing Jiao competition ended. Even if Rongzhen didn't find her, she would have gone to find her. So, even though today's incident was very sudden, it was all within her control. The murderous look in Shue Shue's eyes instantly disappeared, and it became extremely obedient as it rubbed against Chu Luiyue's palm coquettishly. Is this your fiend? No. Impossible. Elder Meng was stunned by the scene in front of him and didn't feel good. When exactly did Chu Luiyue have such a strong presence? Also, this fiend seems to be very obedient to her. Even if it's not her fiend, there doesn't seem to be any difference. Shue Shue looked up at Chu Luiyue and wanted to ask for another round of praise, but its gaze suddenly froze, and it stared deadly at Chu Luiyue's neck. Upon seeing its expression, Chu Luiyue then touched her neck in hindsight. The marks left by the rope were very clear. She curved her eyes. It's okay. It's just a flesh wound. But Shue Shue's eyes seemed to be burning with fire. To a fiend, having a rope around their neck was a very humiliating thing. It was even more so for humans. How dare they treat me like this? Roar. Shue Shue roared angrily. Rongzhen heard this sound and was so frightened that her entire body trembled. She forced her eyes open and looked at Shue Shue. For some reason, she felt that this scene was very familiar, right? The high-level fiend I met in the hunting ground back then seemed to be white. And this aura is exactly the same. Elder Meng. This white lion is the fiend that destroyed my pearl of essence. Rongzhen shouted in a hoarse voice. Quick! Tell father and mother. Digression, update at 12 noon tomorrow. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 321. Elder Meng was shocked. When Rongzhen went to the hunting ground to hunt that high-level fiend, he didn't follow her. In addition, when Rongzhen fell off the cliff, she didn't see the other party's face clearly, so no one knew what the high-level fiend that hurt her looked like. They originally thought that the matter would be left unsettled, but they didn't expect to encounter it again today. Also, this fiend clearly has a close relationship with Chu Luiyue. Elder Meng made a prompt decision and took out a thumb-sized silver cylinder. That was the special SOS tube used by country Yao Chen's royal family. As long as force was injected, it would explode immediately. Chu Luiyue narrowed her eyes. She had heard of this before. It was also called a silver fly. Every member of country Yao Chen's royal family had one, and they wouldn't use it unless it was a critical moment. This also meant that once this thing was activated, it meant that one's life was in danger. The royal family's people could quickly rush over based on the signal sent out by this thing. More importantly, after this silver fly exploded, everyone within a 1-kilometer radius would be stained with a special smell. Those people could use this smell to continue their pursuit. If that was the case, it would unintentionally cause a lot of trouble. Chu Luiyue raised her hand and swiftly threw the dagger out. The dagger was extremely fast and hit Elder Meng's wrist in an instant. The silver fly fell to the ground. Elder Meng panicked and immediately went forward to snatch the silver fly back. Xue Xue raised its claws and waved it harshly. A few sharp rays of light flew out instantly. Elder Meng was shocked and immediately dodged. A red shadow flashed past. The next moment, Dumpling held the silver fly in its mouth and appeared in front of Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue took the silver fly and lightly patted Dumpling's head. "You're smart." Dumpling proudly wagged its tail and then shook its butt at Rongzhen and Elder Meng with a look of disdain. Elder Meng's heart sank. A powerful high-level fiend, a cunning Chu Luiyue, and a mysterious blood ferret, he and Rongzhen weren't their opponents at all. Rongzhen finally realized the danger at this point. Her face turned even paler, and blood kept seeping out of the corner of her mouth. She forced herself to raise her head and look at Chu Luiyue. His arrogant and presumptuous face was now filled with deep fear. However, there was still a trace of resentment in the depths of his eyes. "It's you. It's you. This magical beast was sent by you," she accused in a trembling voice. "It's you. You've long harbored a grudge against me and wanted to kill me to silence me, haven't you?" Chu Luiyue raised his eyebrows. "You're saying Xue Xue is the devil beast that destroyed your essence core? Why are you pretending to be innocent?" Rongzhen was already on the verge of breaking down. Seeing that Chu Luiyue didn't seem to know anything, she was so angry that her lungs exploded, and she screamed hysterically. "Back then, you purposely sold the hunting ground and then secretly spread the news that there were high-level magical beasts there to lure me over. Then, you sent this magical beast to sneak an attack on me, causing me to fall off the cliff. My essence core was destroyed, and I was completely crippled. Everything you did was because I humiliated you at the palace banquet back then. You evil woman. The truth is right here. Do you still want to deny it?" Chu Luiyue pondered over Rongzhen's words, and his eyes darkened. Then, he looked at Xue Xue, who was beside him, in deep thought. Xue Xue lowered its head guiltily and stared at its claws. Chu Luiyue asked lightly, "Xue Xue, why are you here?" "Xue Xue, did you really push her off the cliff back then?" Xue Xue didn't move. "HM?" Chu Luiyue's voice rose slightly. Xue Xue immediately looked at her. It was just following orders. Chu Luiyue stared at it for a while. After confirming that it wasn't lying, she raised her eyebrows in satisfaction. "Just admit it. I don't like little fellows who lie to me." Xue Xue hurriedly nodded. Dumpling, who was at the side, suddenly froze. She secretly glanced at Chu Luiyue to confirm that she wasn't talking about her. Then, she shifted her gaze away. Chu Luiyue's lips suddenly curled up into a smile. "Well done." Xue Xue instantly heaved a sigh of relief. A huge smile appeared on its face, and its white teeth were exposed. Rongzhen was about to die from anger. She really didn't know what Chu Luiyue was doing now. She was clearly the mastermind behind all of this, yet she was still acting here. Chu Luiyue looked at Rongzhen. She crossed her arms with one hand and played with the dagger that had already flown back with the other. She lazily said, "Rongzhen, whether you believe it or not, I didn't destroy your pearl of essence. However, I can't be bothered to explain so much to you now. Anyway, in your eyes, I'm already an evil woman. Whatever I do, even if it's killing you, is perfectly normal, right? Rongjin shuddered in fear. Chu Luyue. I'm the fourth princess of country Yaochen. You dare to kill me? Why wouldn't I dare? Chu Luyue interrupted her and surveyed the surroundings. This place is deserted. It's the best place to kill someone. Besides, you guys secretly brought me out. Other than you guys, no one else knows that I'm with you now. Even if they investigate in the future, they won't be able to trace it back to me. Rongjin's lips trembled violently, but she couldn't say anything. This was because she knew very well that Chu Luyue wasn't wrong at all. She looked at Chu Luyue. That woman was standing there, her posture relaxed and languid, her face full of smiles. However, the cold glint in her eyes was even colder than the glint of the dagger she was playing with. Endless fear surged in Rongjin's heart. At this moment, she finally realized that she was a fish on someone's chopping block. Chu Luyue could really kill her here. Besides, she could definitely do it. Chu Luyue. Please. Please don't kill me. I was blind in the past and offended you. Please don't hold it against me, okay? I can apologize to you. If you want, you can also use a rope to strangle me. I'll bark like a dog for you, okay? Please. Rongjin was scared out of her wits. In order to survive, she was willing to give up everything. Chu Luyue looked at her with interest. He originally thought that Rongjin was a spoiled, arrogant, and domineering princess, but now it seemed that she was more flexible than he imagined. However, that was all there was to it. Chu Luyue smiled. Rongjin, you don't have to waste your breath. At this moment, if you were me, would you spare my life? Rongjin's voice stopped abruptly. Of course not. There was such a huge conflict between her and Chu Luyue. If she had the chance to kill Chu Luyue, she definitely wouldn't hesitate. Chu Luyue would definitely do the same. Thinking of this, despair gradually filled her eyes. Chu Luyue raised his chin. Don't worry. Today is a good day for me, so I'll give you a quick death. As she spoke, she pointed the dagger in her hand at Rongjin's glabella. Chu. Wait. I can tell you a secret about Rongjin. Digression, the remaining chapters might be slower to update, so let's read them together tonight. Mobile users, please browse and read them. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 322. Tuck. The sharp dagger dangerously flew over Rongjin's head. It then harshly stabbed into the ground beside her. A strand of hair floated down in front of her eyes. Rongjin's heart seemed to be tightly clenched by something. If I had been any later, I would have really died here today. Chu Luyue looked at Rongjin's pale and shaken face for a while before slowly asking, I have nothing to do with Rongjin anymore. I have nothing to do with Rongjin anymore, and any secrets related to him have nothing to do with me. What makes you think that you can use this secret to exchange for your life? Yes. Yes. I definitely can. I promise that you'll definitely be interested in this matter. Rongjin was afraid that Chu Luyue would regret it, so she spoke very quickly. Chu Luyue raised his brows with interest. Oh. Rongjin's eyes were filled with panic, but she still spoke to Chu Luyue confidently. Really? If you really don't care after I say it, it won't be too late to kill me then. In any case, my life and death is in your hands right now, isn't it? Chu Luyue lifted his chin. Tell me about it. Rongjin took a deep breath in and forcefully swallowed the sticky blood that surged up her throat. The smell made her want to vomit, but at this point, she definitely didn't dare to do anything she shouldn't do in front of Chu Luyue. Do you know that father and country Xing Luo want Situ Xingchen to marry Rongjin? Hearing Situ Xingchen's name, a dim light flashed across Chu Luyue's eyes. There weren't any rumors about this before. How did you know? Seeing that Chu Luyue seemed to be interested in this matter, Rongjin secretly heaved a sigh of relief in her heart and continued speaking. Because I inadvertently heard about this matter from Imperial Mother. However, she and Rong Jin don't know that I know about this. Chu Luyue nodded in understanding. In that case, it wasn't impossible. After all, Rong Zhen was the Empress's biological daughter, and she had always been close to Rong Jin. Thus, it wasn't strange for her to hear this. A fair lady is a gentleman's mate. It's Rong Jin's blessing to be able to marry Situ Xingchen. Chu Luyue said faintly. She said this with sincerity. Even though Situ Xingchen didn't give her a good impression, Situ Xingchen was indeed very outstanding in other aspects. Whether it was appearance or talent, she was one in a million. Even her status was more honorable and stable than Rong Jin's. Even though Rong Jin was the crown prince the moment he was born, his position was already on the brink of collapse after the recent series of setbacks. Emperor Jiawen's patience with him is about to run out. The other princes are also very outstanding and can replace him at any time. For example, the third prince, Rong Jiu. That person had always been Rong Jin's formidable opponent even though he had been living in seclusion and had been very quiet. However, Chu Luyue did not think that a man who had fought on the battlefield in his teens and made outstanding achievements in battle would admit defeat so easily. He was just waiting for the right time. Previously, Rong Jin was suddenly placed under house arrest and stripped of many of his rights. It seemed to have something to do with the third prince. On the other hand, Situ Xingchen was the eldest princess and did not need to fight for the throne. However, she had extremely high prestige and status in country Xingluo, and even those princes couldn't compare to her. The marriage between the two of them was beneficial to Rong Jin. Rong Jin didn't ask to marry Situ Xingchen. This marriage was initiated by country Xingluo. Rong Zhen emphasized every word. This really shocked Chu Luyue. Why? This is the secret I want to tell you. Rong Zhen looked at Chu Luyue nervously. Do you want to hear this secret now? If you want to know, then, you have to swear that you won't kill me. You also won't use other means to torture me. Chu Luyue's lips curved up slightly. Are you negotiating with me? Do you have the right? Rong Zhen choked and then gritted her teeth. She gritted her teeth and said, I know I don't. But if you don't agree, then, you don't have to do anything. I'll end it myself. Chu Luyue looked at her nonchalantly. The dagger is beside you. Rong Zhen didn't seem to expect Chu Luyue to give such a straightforward answer, and she couldn't help but be dazed. Why you don't want to know the reason behind this? There's a huge secret behind this. Chu Luyue nodded honestly. Of course, I want to know. But I hate it when others bargain with me, especially someone like you. As she spoke, she glanced at the sky. If you really want to take action, you better hurry. It's almost evening now. I still have to go back and have dinner with my father. Rong Zhen's blood was stuck in her throat, and her face flushed red. You! She angrily pulled out the dagger and pressed it against her neck. Chu Luyue. I'm telling you. If you don't listen to this secret, you'll definitely regret it. Chu Luyue acted as if he didn't hear anything. Oh, right. Even though the dagger is sharp, if you cut it in the wrong spot, it'll take a long time for you to bleed to death. The spot you put it in now is a little low. Go up a little. Rong Zhen was so angry that her vision turned black. She was originally injured, and there wasn't a single part of her body that didn't hurt. Now that she heard Chu Luyue's words, she was about to break down completely. She clenched her teeth, and her hands trembled. The scene of her confronting her mother a few days ago suddenly surfaced in her mind. Those ear-piercing words were like a sharp knife that harshly pierced her heart. Despair flashed across Rong Zhen's eyes. In the past, she was very talented and was doted on. However, she became a good-for-nothing overnight, and she lost everything. But just because she couldn't do anything for Rong Jin, she became a good-for-nothing in her mother's eyes. She became a thorn in her mother's side. Even if she were to die here today, no one would care. Thinking of this, she slowly closed her eyes as a tear rolled down her cheek. Then, she waved her wrist. Poof! Just as the dagger was about to cut her artery, a stone suddenly flew out of Chu Liuyue's hand and hit Rongjin's wrist. Her hands suddenly turned numb, and the dagger deviated from its original direction and fell to the ground. Chu! There was a cut on Rongjin's neck, but luckily, it was very shallow and wouldn't harm her life. She looked at Chu Liyue dejectedly and hopelessly. What exactly do you want to do? Chu Liyue looked at her with interest. One had to admit that even though Rongjin did many evil things and was arrogant and despotic, she was much more courageous than Rongjin. If Rongjin was the one facing such a situation, he wouldn't even have the courage to hold a dagger. From this aspect, Rongjin was still more outstanding than Rongjin. You can tell me the secret now. Rongjin was dazed, and her eyes were filled with suspicion. Really? Why, you're sure you won't kill me? Chu Liyue nodded. Of course. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 323. After Chu Liyue finished speaking, he glanced at Xue Xue beside him. Xue Xue understood and immediately dashed out. Its body was huge and muscular, but its speed was extremely fast, almost like a bolt of silver lightning. The next moment, it rushed in front of Elder Meng. The moment Elder Meng saw it move, he already realized the danger. He moved his feet and turned to run. But after a few steps, a white figure flashed in front of him, and the white lion appeared in front of him, blocking his path. Force gathered in Elder Meng's palm, and he hurriedly threw a punch. Longyang punch. Mockery flashed across Xue Xue's icy blue eyes. Then, it raised its claws. Swish. Elder Meng's punch was harshly torn apart. Even his hands were bleeding profusely. Elder Meng was pushed back by this strong force and almost fell to the ground. When he finally stabilized himself, he saw the white lion slowly approaching him. Without a second thought, he turned around and fled. Roar! A roar suddenly sounded in the forest. Elder Meng took half a step forward, and his body suddenly froze. Then, viscous blood flowed out of his ears. Bang! He suddenly fell to the ground, no longer breathing. Chu Liyue walked over, not surprised at all. The suppression of a high-level fiend was enough to directly shatter a stage 5 warrior's organs. She used a tree branch to remove the black cloth on Elder Meng's face, and an old and unfamiliar face appeared in front of her. Chu Liyue raised his brows and looked at Rongjin. Rongjin forced herself to calm down and slowly said, "This is Elder Meng. This is Elder Si Meng. He has been secretly protecting me all these years. Someone from the Si family?" "Yes, the Si family doesn't seem to have such an elder, right? He faked his death 20 years ago, but in reality, he has been serving Mother all these years." Chu Liyue instantly recalled that the current empress, Si Huijing, was the Si family head's younger sister. It seems like the empress and the entire Si family have reservations about His Majesty. No. The rest of the Si family doesn't know about this. Even though Rongjin hated the empress, she didn't want to drag the Si family into this. Chu Liyue 4 villages, you have Si Meng by your side, but what about Rongjin and Rongqi? Rongjin shook her head. The imperial palace is heavily guarded, and imperial mother doesn't dare to go too far. In the past, Elder Si Meng mostly protected Rongjin, but ever since I got injured, he started following me. Now that Si Meng was dead, the last bit of hope in her heart was completely shattered. As Chu Liyue listened, he took out a jade bottle from his Qingquan bag and poured something onto Si Meng's body. Rongjin had already guessed what it was, but she cowered and didn't dare to speak. Sure enough, after a short while, Si Meng's body completely disappeared. Not a single trace was left behind. Rongjin widened her eyes at this scene, and her heart raced. After Chu Liyue settled this problem, he looked at Rongjin again. Rongjin seemed to be shocked by her actions and suddenly took a step back. Chu Liyue looked down at her with a smile on her lips. "Okay, now, you can start telling me that secret." After carefully instructing Rongjin, the Empress returned to the palace. Too many things had happened today, and she was completely exhausted. The palace servants had all heard about what happened at Tianlu Academy and knew that the Empress wasn't in a good mood at this time. Hence, they were especially careful. The Empress returned to her room and sat down in front of the dressing table. A face was reflected in the bronze mirror. It was dignified and beautiful, but it was also old and tired. She reached out and slowly brushed past the wrinkles at the corner of her eyes. Even if she took good care of it, it couldn't withstand the corrosion of time. After all, it was different from when she was young. Even she wasn't willing to look at this face, let alone His Majesty. Besides, even if she went back to more than 10 years ago, her face wasn't the one that His Majesty loved the most. Thinking of this, a strong sense of frustration surged in her heart. Bang! She knocked the jewelry box onto the floor. The palace servant serving her at the side immediately knelt down. "Your Majesty, please calm down." The Empress wanted to get angry and kill everyone here. But in the end, she held herself back. None of this was important. As long as Rongjin could stabilize his position as the crown prince, there was still hope for everything. She would definitely be the final winner. Thinking of this, she softened her tone. "You don't have to be nervous. This consort was just too tired and made a mistake. Put everything away." "Yes." The palace servants hurriedly picked up the scattered jewelry one by one and put them back into the box. The Empress asked faintly, "How was the fourth princess today?" The palace servant hurriedly said, replying to Your Highness, "The fourth princess is still in the palace today and is unwilling to come out. The food sent in seems to be useless too." The Empress paused and frowned. After she hit Rongjin a few days ago, Rongjin refused to come out. Even though she regretted hitting Rongjin, she also felt that Rongjin's temper should change. In this kind of situation, how could she still be arrogant and unbridled? Instead of thinking about how to share Rongjin's and my worries, she only cares about herself. Does she think that she's still the fourth princess that everyone doted on? She originally wanted to give her the cold shoulder for a few days so that she would learn to behave. However, it seemed like it was impossible now. She stood up and said, "I'll go and see her." When the Empress walked to Rongjin's bedroom, it was already evening. When the palace servants saw the Empress, they were all shocked. "Greetings, Your Highness." The Empress looked around and indeed didn't see Rongjin. "Where's the fourth princess?" Replying to Your Highness, "The fourth princess is still in the room." The Empress was even more displeased. "I'm already here. Rongjin must have heard me, but she still doesn't come out. She's really spoiled." She restrained her expression and walked straight to the door that was tightly shut. "Zhen, mother is here." The room was silent, and there was no response. The Empress raised her voice. "Zhen." Still, no one spoke. The Empress lost her patience and ordered the palace servants to open the door forcefully. Then, she stepped into it. "Rongjin, you've really gone overboard recently." The Empress's remaining words disappeared in her throat. This was because there was no one in the room. She looked around. Zhen. Dead silence. This time, the Empress finally panicked. She quickly searched the room and finally confirmed that Rongjin wasn't here. She looked at the palace servants behind her in shock and anger. Where did the fourth princess go? The palace servants were also shocked as they knelt down together. "Your Highness, you're wise. The fourth princess has been in her room for the past few days and hasn't come out." "Then, where is she now?" So many people said that Rongjin didn't go out, so she definitely didn't go out for a simple walk. "Why, you really don't know, ah." The Empress casually grabbed the teacup beside her and harshly threw it at the palace servants. "Hurry and find her for me. If you can't find the fourth princess, you'll all have to hand over your heads." Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 324. Yes. The palace servants were also scared out of their wits and hurriedly responded. Just as they were about to leave, the Empress said sternly. Also, you can't let others know about this. If it reaches His Majesty's ears, be careful of your lives. Yes. The palace servants hurriedly left. The Empress's face was terrifyingly dark as she stood rooted to the ground for a while. Where could Rongjin go? Her pearl of essence was shattered, and she didn't have any cultivation left. With her own strength, it was impossible for her to avoid so many people and leave silently. Unless, the Empress suddenly thought of something, and her heart sank. Did Elder Meng leave with Rongjin? She hurriedly walked back into the house and left the palace servants outside. After confirming that there was no one around, she took out something from her arms. It was a thumb-sized jade seal. She usually used this to contact Elder Meng. She gently twisted the seal. Kacha. A soft sound was heard. She looked at the bottom of the seal. But to her disappointment, there was no reaction. The Empress frowned. Even if Elder Meng left with Rongjin, he should have received this news. In the past, he would respond quickly, but now, she paused for a while and tried again. Still, there was no reaction. The Empress became increasingly anxious. Elder Meng had been with her for many years, but this had never happened before. This made her feel very uneasy. She couldn't help but size up the room again. Everything was normal, except that there was one person missing. The Empress felt her head hurt and rubbed her glabella. Where exactly could Rongjin have gone? There were enough things today, but Rongjin just had to add to the chaos at this time. If His Majesty finds out, he will blame me even more for not doing my duty as a mother. Our current situation is already difficult enough. What is wrong with Rongjin? When I find her, I will teach her a lesson no matter what. Bam! All of a sudden, the seal in her hand exploded. The Empress was shocked and directly threw it out. The seal that was already broken rolled on the floor and completely disintegrated. Her Majesty? What's wrong? The palace servants outside hurriedly asked when they heard the sound. The Empress instinctively shouted. Nothing. Nobody is allowed to come in. As she spoke, she hurriedly walked over and picked up the broken pieces of the seal. She opened her eyes wide and looked at the thing in her hand in disbelief. It took her a long time to recover. This is, Old Meng is dead? Her body trembled uncontrollably with shock and fear. Elder Meng was actually dead. He was a rank 5 warrior. All these years, he had done many things for her and had never made a single mistake. How could he suddenly die now? The Empress was suddenly stunned. Wait a minute. If it was really Elder Meng who took Zhenjin out, and now that he was dead, wouldn't Zhenjin? Thinking of this, she quickly got up. If Zhenjin was really in danger, she had to send someone to save her as soon as possible. But halfway there, she stopped. Telling His Majesty about this was the fastest and most effective way. After all, His Majesty could mobilize too many people. If she blindly sent people to search, who knew when there would be news? But how was she going to explain how Rongjin left so quietly? Once His Majesty conducts a thorough investigation, he will definitely find Elder Meng. Even if he's already dead. By then, not to mention Rongjin, she might not even be able to sit on her throne as the Empress. She hesitated for a moment and fell into a dilemma. After hesitating for a long time, she finally decided to hide this matter first. If she could find Rongjin as soon as possible, everyone would be happy. If not, in a life and death situation, Rongjin would definitely think of ways to protect herself. After all, she still had Silver Fly with her. Now, the mother and son pair couldn't create any more trouble. The Chu family. Chu Ning followed the wooden vines to the Chu residence. Standing in front of the door and looking at the very familiar door, he had a lot of thoughts and complicated feelings. He used to be proud of the Chu family and tried his best to give up everything for the Chu family. But in the end, the Chu family only left him with endless painful memories. If it weren't for the family head, he definitely wouldn't step through this door again. The guard standing at the door saw him from afar and immediately bowed respectfully. "Welcome back, eldest young master." They were very attentive and had flattering smiles on their faces. Even when Chu Ning was at his peak, he had never been treated so warmly. However, the smiles on their faces were glaring and even disgusting to Chu Ning. He could still clearly remember how these people had treated him and a few months ago. How long had it been, and things had become like this? Every dog has its day. He ignored those people and walked straight through the door. Passing through the courtyard, he walked toward the hall. But before he reached the place, he saw that the Chu family had already gathered outside the hall. Seeing his figure appear, someone immediately went up to welcome him. "Big brother. You're finally back." Looking at the smiling man in front of him, Chu Ning knitted his brows. Chu Ji. Chu Ji came from a branch of the Chu family and had always been at odds with him. In the past, when he was in the limelight, Chu Ji was jealous and always felt that he had stolen his reputation and glory. Later on, when he fell from grace, Chu Ji secretly made things difficult for him. Chu Ning's lips curled up into a cold smile. "Chu Ji, it's been a long time since I called you big brother. It seems. You haven't called me that in 10 years, right?" A trace of awkwardness flashed across Chu Ji's face, but he quickly squeezed out an eager smile and pulled Chu Ning's arm with one hand. Chapter 325. Just as Chu Xiao was about to flare up, the person beside him hurriedly whispered, "First Elder. It wasn't easy for us to invite Chu Ning back. Don't fall out because of an argument. Business is more important. Business is more important." Chu Xiao could only suppress the anger in his heart. In any case, the invitation had already been written. It was not a big deal for him to lower his stance now. This was not only for the Chu family, but also for himself. Thinking of this, he adjusted his expression and restrained the anger on his face. "You can't say that here. So many people are standing here. What do you think it looks like? Come in first." With that, he turned around and returned to the hall. A small portion of the others followed him in, while the majority of them were still looking at Chu Ning, as if waiting for him to move. Chu Ji didn't dare to provoke him again. He only said eagerly from the side, "Big brother, please go first. You're the big brother, so you should naturally go first." Chu Ning glanced at him. There was no embarrassment on Chu Ji's face. Instead, it was filled with excitement and fawning. Seeing that Chu Ning was sizing him up, he quickly said, "Big brother, you haven't been back for a while. You might not be used to it, but don't worry, just tell me if you have any instructions. I'll definitely do it for you." Chu Ning could see the sincerity in his words. Chu Ji really did not hold a grudge over what happened just now. Instead, he was wholeheartedly trying to please him. How ironic. Chu Ning shook his head and walked towards the hall. Seeing him walk in, the others followed him in. Chu Ning was arranged to be the first on the left. Other than the seat of honor where Chu Xiao usually sat, this was the most honorable seat. It was even ranked before the other elders of the Chu family. However, Chu Ning could not be bothered with this and sat down. "Since everyone is already in, First Elder, can you speak frankly?" He did not want to waste time here. The longer he stayed with these people, the more unbearable he felt. Therefore, he planned to quickly resolve the matter and return. Chu Xiao was dissatisfied with Chu Ning's attitude, but he knew that now was not the time to be calculative. Hence, he said, according to what the patriarch said back then, he should be coming out of seclusion soon. If the patriarch knew about this, he would definitely be very disappointed. "So, I've called you here today to discuss what to do about this matter." Chu Ning chuckled, but there was no mirth in her eyes. "What else can we do? Since it had already happened, could it be that they were going to pretend that it never happened? When the patriarch comes out of seclusion, I will personally explain to him. Everyone was stunned and looked at each other. They seemed to have never expected that Chu Ning would actually say this. Chu Ji couldn't help but say, "Big brother, don't you always respect the patriarch the most? Severing your relationship with the Chu clan is equivalent to severing your relationship with the clan head. If the clan head knows about it, he will definitely be very upset." Chu Ning said calmly. "I know. Whether it was in the past or now, my respect for the patriarch has always been the same. But now that things have come to this, no one can turn back. So, no matter how the patriarch views me, I will accept it." "Are you serious?" Even Chu Xiao could not help but ask. Clearly, he was extremely shocked by Chu Ning's words. Everyone in the Chu family knew that Chu Ning was a very sentimental person. I thought that bringing up the family head would make him regret his decision back then, but now it seems that it's a little unexpected. Chu Ning nodded. "Of course. Every word I said was carefully thought out." The hall fell into an awkward silence. He had already said this, so how could the other say anything? After a long while, Chu Xiao frowned and said, "Chu Ning, since you've already said so, then there's no need for us to be so polite. You should know why I called you back today." Chu Ning's face was sincere. "I'm sorry, I really don't know. Is it to apologize to you, and me, to ease the relationship with us father and daughter, or to beg us to come back? If you don't say it, how can I guess?" Everyone's expression became awkward again. Chu Xiao suppressed his anger. "Chu Ning, don't go overboard. I really don't know, that's why I asked. Is this considered going overboard?" Chu Ning sneered and swept his gaze across everyone. "You can't be asking me to come back to chat, right? Enough." Chu Xiao felt that these words were very ear-piercing. He finally couldn't hold it in anymore. He stood up angrily and stared at Chu Ning. "Don't you just want us to admit that we want you to come back?" "Not beg," Chu Ning corrected sincerely. Chu Zhao's face kept changing between green and white. "Chu Ning, you're right. Now, the entire Chu family hopes that you and Lu Yu can come back and become a member of the Chu family again." The third elder, who had been silent all this time, suddenly spoke and looked at Chu Ning kindly. "The Chu family has wronged you and your father, so you can choose whatever you want. If you agree to come back, everyone in the Chu family will be grateful. If you don't, then, what happened today never happened." The third elder's words made the Chu family members even more embarrassed. But they had to endure it. After all, someone had to say this. Moreover, they were indeed the ones who were begging. Chu Ning's expression softened a little, and he nodded slightly at the third elder. "Thank you for pointing it out, third elder. My answer is, I don't agree." This answer was also within everyone's expectations, but they had already prepared a lot of persuasive words. "Chu Ning, think about it carefully again. After all, the Chu family is the place where you were born and raised. Don't you have any attachment at all?" "Yes. Big brother. If you're still angry about what happened to Chu Yan's family, then it's not worth it. You probably don't know that Lu Yao instigated the Gu family's madam to cause trouble at Tian Lu Academy and was taught a lesson by the Gu family's master. And Chu Yan is still lying in bed and can't get up. That couple has caused so much trouble for the Chu family. Now that the Chu family has declined and caused so much trouble, it's really in danger. Chu Ning, are you really going to watch from the sidelines? When the master comes out of seclusion, how are we going to explain to him? If you're still holding a grudge about what happened in the past, then we'll let you take revenge. How about that? Oh right, and Lu Yu. We've already locked up all the servants who bullied her in the past. As long as you come back, you can do whatever you want with them." All kinds of voices mixed together, making Chu Ning feel extremely annoyed. He suddenly sneered. "Oh. Is that so? If I remember correctly, many of you here have done the same thing, right? If you really want to settle the score, then you can't escape, right? The hall instantly quieted down. Chu Ning looked at Chu Xiao and said coldly, "For the first one, why don't we start with First Elder Chu?" Digression, tomorrow at noon, please browse and read for mobile users. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 326. Chu Xiao frowned. "Chu Ning, do you know what you're saying?" Chu Ning leaned back in his chair with a relaxed expression and a cold gaze. "Of course. If you don't accept, then let's end the discussion here." As he spoke, he was about to stand up. Chu Xiao was about to shout angrily, but the person beside him spoke first. "That. Chu Ning, we know that the Chu family wronged you and your daughter first. It's understandable for you to make this request. However, so much time has passed. Are you going to investigate everything one by one? I remember each and every one of them clearly. I won't malign anyone." Chu Ning glanced at the person who spoke. "Why don't we start with you?" That person was speechless. The entire hall fell into dead silence again. Who knew what Chu Ning would think of to punish and take revenge on them? Only a fool would stand out at this time. However, it was difficult for them to give up just like that. Chu Ning had been promoted to the commander of the Imperial Guards and held great power in his hands. However, this was not the most important thing. The key to the problem was still Chu Luiyue. It would be fine if she was just an ordinary cultivation genius, but she was clearly more outstanding than most people. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to take first place twice in the Qing Jiao competition. Moreover, she was extremely talented as a celestial physician. From the moment she could refine pills, she was already considered a true celestial physician. One had to know that no one in the Chu family had achieved this in so many years. What made them even more tempted was that Chu Luiyue had a Daijinjuan meridian and was chosen by Mu Qinghe to cultivate in the Tianling dynasty in the future. What an honor this was. If Chu Luiyue was still a member of the Chu family, then the entire Chu family's status would instantly rise. By then, not only would they be able to maintain their position as one of the four major families, they might even be able to replace the C family as the number one family. How could they give up such a huge temptation in front of them? "Big brother, for the sake of the master, why don't we compromise?" Chu Ji cautiously said. Chu Ning asked. "What do you mean?" Chu Ji glanced at Chu Xiao and smiled awkwardly. "About that. If we were to count the things that happened in the past one by one, it would be quite troublesome. Why don't we formally apologize to you and Lu Yu and compensate you according to your suggestions? In order to show our sincerity, this matter should start with the Great Elder. How about it?" Chu Xiao raised his eyebrows. "Chu Ji, do you want this old man to lower his head and apologize first?" "Cough cough, Grand Elder, you don't have to be so blunt, except for the patriarch. Right now, you are the most respected person in the Chu clan. Isn't it the most convincing to start with you? Even if it's for the Chu family." Chu Ji lowered his voice when he said the last sentence, but everyone in the hall heard it clearly. Everyone's hesitant and worried expressions quickly dissipated. "First Elder, what Chu Ji said makes sense. You have indeed given Chu Ning and his daughter a lot of grievances in the past. It is only right for you to apologize." "Yes. You've already written the invitation. Didn't you ask Chu Ning to come back today to discuss a solution? It's best to turn big problems into small ones and small ones into nothing. First Elder, didn't you say that we are all family? Since we are family, it's fine to lower our heads." Chu Xiao was so angry that his face turned green. These people who were usually respectful to him actually sold him out in the blink of an eye in order to establish a relationship with Chu Luiyue. After a long stalemate, Chu Xiao finally said coldly, "All right. In that case, this old man will apologize to you." Chu Ning smiled faintly. "First Elder, are you apologizing or lecturing people?" Chu Xiao choked. The people beside him hurriedly approached and said, "First Elder, think about Vice Admiral Mu. The other families didn't have the chance to establish a relationship with him. And the fact that the blood of the Chu family flowed in Chu Liuyue's body was indisputable. As long as they were willing to agree to come back, these small matters wouldn't be a problem at all. Chu Xiao took a deep breath. In the past, this old man did some terrible things and hurt you and your father. Now, I apologize to you, I'm sorry. Chu Xiao's body trembled as he gritted his teeth. It took him a lot of effort to say these words. He was used to being high and mighty in the Chu family. Now that he had to lower his head and apologize to Chu Ning, who he had always disliked, he felt extremely disgusted and broke down in his heart. He would settle this score in the future. The others didn't care about Chu Xiao's emotions at all. They all looked at Chu Ning expectantly. He had apologized and admitted his mistake. Now, Chu Ning should agree to return to the Chu family, right? But under their fervent gazes, Chu Ning didn't move. He just looked at Chu Xiao quietly as if he was still waiting for something. There's still you, His voice was cold as he said word by word. Everyone looked at each other. Chu Xiao suddenly came back to his senses. You want this old man to apologize to Chu Luyue again? Chu Ning nodded as if it was a matter of course. Of course. I am me, and you, is you, Besides, she seems to have suffered more grievances than me all these years. Is it so difficult for you to apologize? Chu Xiao was about to go crazy. When did Chu Ning become so difficult to deal with? Then why didn't you say so just now? Chu Ning snorted. His gaze was mocking, but he suddenly stood up. It's so difficult for you to even apologize. I think the so-called compensation is even more illusory. Since you don't have any sincerity, I think there's no need to continue this conversation. He walked out of the hall. When the patriarch comes out of seclusion, I will naturally explain everything that you, and I did. I believe he will understand. As for you, good luck. Wait. Seeing that Chu Ning was really about to leave, Chu Xiao finally threw caution to the wind. As long as Chu Luyue agrees to return to the Chu family, then this old man will personally apologize to her until she is satisfied. How about it? Chu Ning stood still, and a mocking smile appeared on his face. He turned around and looked at Chu Xiao. There's no need. Chu Xiao was stunned. What? Chu Ning laughed softly, but his voice was as cold as ice, chilling to the bottom of one's heart. The Chu family gave birth to me and raised me. If I say that I don't have the slightest bit of nostalgia for the Chu family, it would definitely be a lie. So, whether it's for the sake of the Chu family's nurturing of me in the past, or for the sake of the patriarch who is about to come out of seclusion, I can let bygones be bygones and let bygones be bygones. But you can't. I remember clearly what you did to you, and I will never forget it in this lifetime. Even if all of you kneel on the ground and kowtow to apologize, even if you, is really willing to forgive you, I can't do it. Digression, slowly updating. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 327. With Shueshue's help, Chu Luyue rushed home as fast as she could. Fortunately, she arrived before Chu Ning. After about 15 minutes, Chu Ning finally returned. Father, how did it go? Chu Luyue asked. Chu Ning smiled. It's all settled. Chu Luyue was a little surprised. They invited you back to discuss letting us go back, right? I rejected them. Chu Ning's answer was very straightforward. And I told them that we will never go back. Chu Luyue was stunned. Then the family head, I went there today because I wanted to make things clear to them. This way, if the family head asks, I can give him an explanation. However, from the beginning to the end, I have no intention of forgiving them. Chu Ning looked at Chu Luyue and sighed softly. Because you are the person I want to protect the most in this world. Chu Liuyue's heart warmed up. She knew how much Chu Ning had compromised for her, so she felt especially grateful and warm. Thank you, father. The next day, Chu Liyue returned to the academy. The fire caused Joyo Tower to completely disappear. The elders and teachers in the academy were busy dealing with the remaining matters, so most of the students had more free time. When Chu Liyue went to look for Mu Hongyu, she happened to see Liao Zhongshu. Lu Yu. Mu Hongyu was very excited when she saw Chu Liyue. Thank you. I have already written a letter to father. They will send mother here soon. Chu Liyue was also very happy. That's good. It's just that the journey is bumpy, so mother will have to suffer. Don't worry. Although Imperial concubine mother's health is not suitable for her to move too much recently, when Imperial father heard that you asked for Deputy General Mu's help, he immediately found several powerful elders to think of a way to safely send Imperial concubine mother here. I really don't know how to thank you. Originally, when Mu Hongyu asked Chu Liyue for help, she didn't have much hope. After all, they were envoys from the Tianling dynasty, and they had distinguished statuses. Even Emperor Zhouan might not be able to invite them, let alone Chu Liyue. Who would have thought that Chu Liyue would be the only one chosen, and he even managed to convince Vice Admiral Mu to help. I didn't think that I would have to trouble Vice Admiral Mu to invite someone from the Tianling dynasty over. I really owe you a big favor for this. Chu Liyue's lips curved up. It's fine. I also want to see what the celestial physician of the Tianling dynasty is like. After she died, other than Mu Qinghe, what happened to the others? Mu Hongyu's eyes lit up. Yeah. Speaking of celestial physician, Lu Yu, you can actually produce pills now. We didn't know about this before. You hit it too well. Now that Chu Liyue can produce pills, he can be considered a real celestial physician. In the entire country Yaochen, there are very few people with such an identity. Besides, Chu Liyue is still so young. I knew that you were definitely more capable than we thought, but I didn't expect. TSK. Mu Hongyu lightly snorted and glanced at Liao Zhongshu, who was beside her. The red blood goo in your body was cured by Lu Yu. You must have known about this long ago. Liao Zhongshu smiled helplessly and shook his head. I really didn't know. Unfortunately, the others didn't believe him. Previously, he pretended that the poison was still in his system and was bedridden, so he didn't attend the Qingjiao competition. When he heard that Chu Liyue actually produced pills and took the first place in the celestial physician competition, he was shocked for a long time. Only then did he realize that Chu Liyue was the person who saved his life. Mu Hongyu wrinkled her nose, but she couldn't be bothered to argue with him. She was more interested in something else. Lu Yu, when will you go to the Tianling dynasty with Vice Admiral Mu? Chu Liyue shook his head. It's not confirmed yet. He seems to be staying here for a while, and he wants to continue observing me. If I can't pass, I still can't go. Ah. So troublesome. Mu Hongyu looked disappointed. I thought you guys would go directly. Chu Liyue laughed. I'm not in a hurry, so why are you in a hurry? I'm not in a hurry, but it's the Tianling dynasty we're talking about. Mu Hongyu held her cheeks with both hands, her eyes full of yearning. Who doesn't want to go to that kind of place? Lu Yu, don't you think everyone there is a genius? Everything there must be much better than here. Not necessarily, Chu Liyue said calmly. Mu Hongyu was stunned. How do you know? Chu Liyue paused and realized that he had said something wrong. Her eyes flickered, and she smiled. I guessed. If everything is good, then why did Vice Admiral Mu spend so much effort to come here? Now that you mention it, it does make sense. Mu Hongyu's eyes turned, and she suddenly thought of something. Right. You won first place in the Qingjiao competition and chose to go to Tai Yan Academy's library to read for a month. However, Vice Admiral Mu has already chosen you. Do you still want to go? Although this is an extremely rare opportunity, it's not worth mentioning compared to the Tianling dynasty. Unexpectedly, Chu Luiyue said without hesitation. I'll go. I'm planning to talk to Vice Admiral Mu about this today. What? Mu Hongyu and Liao Zhongshu were shocked. Are you serious? You're really going? Lu Yu, do you know how many people don't have the opportunity to go to the Tianling dynasty like you? You're actually choosing Tai Yan Academy? Mu Hongyu widened her eyes. She felt that Chu Liuyue's decision was unbelievable. Liao Zhongshu was about to speak, but he suddenly remembered the red blood goo and swallowed his words. Chu Liuyue smiled. I have my own plans. In fact, she did not plan to stay there for a month. As long as there was any movement on Mu Qinghe's side, she could immediately come back. Moreover, although Mu Qinghe did not say it explicitly, based on Chu Liuyue's understanding of him, he should be planning to stay here for a long time. Chu Liuyue did not think that the reason he was staying was because of her. Therefore, this was also something that she was very curious about. Mu Hongyu wanted to say a few more words, but when she saw Chu Liuyue's determined expression, she gave up. All right. When are you going? The people from Tai Yan Academy seem to have left today. Our academy's elders Wu Rong and Elder Wei Cheng from Nanfeng Academy also went. Chu Liuyue understood. This was obviously to investigate Heng Jingshua and the others. She thought for a moment. It won't be too late for me to go after your mother arrives. Mu Hongyu was stunned, and her eyes reddened. Lu Yu, thank you so much. It's nothing. Chu Liuyue's lips curled up slightly. Mu Hongyu suddenly said, oh, right. After you returned home yesterday, Chu Xianmin looked for you. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 328. This surprised Chu Liuyue. She's looking for me? Yes. I don't know what she wants to do. I accidentally passed by your place yesterday and saw her loitering at your door. I went up to ask her what she was doing, but she didn't want to say anything and left in a hurry. Mu Hongyu shrugged and pouted. Maybe she wants to do something to harm you when you're not around. Chu Liuyue squinted her eyes and tapped her fingers on the table. It's indeed strange for Chu Xianmin to take the initiative to look for me. However, if it's because of the person behind red blood goo, it's hard to say. After all, during the Qing Jiao competition, she had clearly felt an inexplicable threatening aura. I have a feeling that the other party is targeting me. Then, on Chu Xianmin's side, did Chu Xianmin come to the academy today? She asked. I don't know. She probably came. Are you going to look for her? Mu Hongyu was a little worried. Chu Xianmin was cunning and vengeful. Nothing good would come of her taking the initiative to look for Chu Xianmin. Besides, the crown prince even asked Chu Liuyue to be his wife in front of everyone. This was equivalent to slapping Chu Xianmin in the face. I'm afraid she hates Chu Liuyue to death now. However, after thinking about it, Mu Hongyu felt that her worries were unnecessary. How can Chu Xianmin be Chu Liuyue's match? Okay, go then. I'll go and confirm mother's arrangements after she comes here. Chu Liuyue nodded and got ready to leave. Liao Zhongshu also suddenly stood up. Lu Yu, I'm also leaving. Do you still not know where Chu Xianmin lives? Why don't I bring you there? The two of them looked at each other. Chu Liuyue nodded. Okay. The two of them walked towards Chu Xianmin's residence. Liao Zhongshu sighed. Lu Yu, I owe you my life. If you need anything in the future, just let me know. Chu Liuyue looked at him. He had just recovered from a serious illness, and his face was still somewhat pale. However, the expression in his eyes was incomparably sincere. Perhaps I can't help you with anything now, but as long as you say the word, I will go through fire and water without hesitation. Chu Liuyue looked at him for a while and nodded gently. It's a deal. Liao Zhongshu smiled in relief. The two of them continued to walk forward for a while. Liao Zhongshu stood still and pointed at a certain place ahead. That's where Chu Xianmin lives. Chu Xianmin did not live with others because of her excellent results when she entered the school. I'll wait for you here. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but think that Liao Zhongshu was indeed a smart person. He knew what he should do and what he shouldn't do. The smile on her face deepened as she lifted her foot and walked towards that direction. Just as he reached the door was opened from the inside. Chu Xianmin was about to leave when she looked up and saw Chu Luiyue. She was shocked. What are you doing here? Chu Luiyue sized Chu Xianmin up. It had only been one night, but Chu Xianmin looked a lot more haggard. Even though she used a veil to cover her face, one could still see the faint dark circles under her eyes. Her tired, bloodshot eyes also showed that she was not in a good state. Were you looking for me yesterday? Chu Luiyue's question made Chu Xianmin hesitate. And no, Chu Luiyue ignored her and walked past her into the room. You only have 15 minutes. Chu Luiyue said lightly. Chu Xianmin turned around and felt that the pair of black jade-like eyes seemed to have seen through her. She clenched her teeth, closed the door, and turned to face Chu Luiyue. Yesterday, that person came again. Chu Luiyue raised his brows. When? Chu Xianmin shook her head. When I sent the crown prince back yesterday and came back to the academy, he had already been here. I didn't see him. He only left one thing behind. As she spoke, she walked to the table at the side and opened a box. Chu Luiyue glanced at it from the corner of his eyes and focused. That's a letter? Chu Xianmin passed the letter to Chu Luiyue. It was a letter wrapped in a red envelope. There was a strange picture printed on it, and there was a line of words in the middle. To Chu Luiyue. The handwriting was strong and smooth. However, Chu Luiyue felt a strong murderous intent from it. She did not take the letter. Instead, she looked up at Chu Xianmin. Chu Xianmin immediately said, I promise that I didn't say anything about you. I don't know why he wrote you a letter. I really don't know. She only knew that the other party purposely asked her to pass the letter. It was obvious that he already knew everything that happened here. This was also a warning to her. Ever since she received the letter yesterday, Chu Xianmin had been feeling uneasy and worried. She originally thought that the other party would kill her directly. However, other than the letter, everything else was normal. This made her even more fearful. She did not know when the punishment would befall her. After she saw the letter, she hesitated for a long time before deciding to look for Chu Luiyue. However, Chu Luiyue was not around. She did not sleep the entire night after she came back. She kept thinking about this matter and hesitating about what she should do. When she faced Chu Luiyue's question, she subconsciously denied it because she had already decided to hide the letter. Who knew if this was a test from the other party? However, Chu Luiyue was right in front of her. She was terrified and decided to give the letter to her in the end. Chu Luiyue took the letter. Chu Xianmin heaved a sigh of relief for some reason. However, she then saw Chu Luiyue stand up to leave. She was shocked. Why, you're not going to open it here? Aren't you afraid that I'm lying to you? Chu Luiyue glanced at her nonchalantly. She could not be bothered to say that there was half a Xian formation drawn on the letter. This Xian formation's level was so high that even the Academy's elders might not be able to use it. Chu Xianmin knew nothing about Xian formations. She could not even tell that it was half a Xian formation. If she wanted to open the letter, she had to fill in the remaining half. Chu Xianmin did not have the chance to do anything even if she wanted to. Moreover, she did not have the guts to do so now. For some reason, Chu Xianmin felt that Chu Luiyue did not say a single word and only looked at her quietly. However, she felt that she was very small and laughable. She shut her mouth embarrassedly. Chu Luiyue kept the letter and left. Chu Xianmin suddenly thought of something and hurriedly shouted. Oh right. Since I've been discovered and the letter has been given to you, can you help me get rid of the poison in my body? Whenever she thought of the horrifying scene of the poison acting up, she would have goosebumps all over her body. She would be terrified the entire night. I don't have any value to you now. Why, you can let me go. Chu Luiyue glanced sideways and glanced at her nonchalantly. You really don't have any value in this aspect, but I still need you to monitor someone. Chu Xianmin was dazed. Who? The Crown Prince, Rong Jin. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 329. Si Family. Study Room. Si looked at the Empress, Si Huijing, in shock. You said that Elder Meng is dead, and Rongzhen is missing? When did this happen? The Empress knitted her brows tightly. Yesterday. Then, why did you only tell me now? When I found out about this, it was already evening. How could I come out then? I even had to beg His Majesty for a long time to come today. The Empress rubbed her temples in frustration. She didn't sleep well last night, and she had nightmares. Her head was about to explode today. The Empress had a distinguished status, but she didn't have much freedom. Her every word and action was watched. She told His Majesty that too many things had happened recently and that she was frustrated. Thus, she wanted to go back to the Si family to take a look, so she came out legitimately. Then, His Majesty didn't say anything, asked Si worriedly. The Empress closed her eyes. His Majesty is angry with Rong Jin, and he can't be bothered with me. He also wants to take this chance to give us a cold shoulder, so he naturally won't say anything. Si sighed, and he couldn't hide his anger. I've heard about everything. Rong Jin is too rash. He actually did such a thing. He's too confident in his position as the Crown Prince. Doesn't he know that there are many people in the Imperial City who want to catch him red-handed? The Empress couldn't be bothered to mention Rong Jin, but he was her most important son after all, so she had to help him. I've already told him off. He promised that he won't do this again. Si sneered and didn't care. If his promise was useful, he wouldn't have done such a thing. I used to think that Rong Jin was petty, but it seems like the problem is more serious than I thought. He's brainless. The Empress glared at him unhappily. Big brother, it's fine if other people say it, but why are you saying it too? You're his uncle. Si wanted to say something, but when he looked up and saw the Empress's haggard face, he paused and swallowed his words. Forget it, let's not talk about him. Rongzhen and Elder Meng's matters are more urgent. What exactly happened? Tell me in detail. The Empress's expression turned solemn, and she immediately recounted what had happened yesterday. So, we can confirm that Elder Meng is dead, and Rongzhen is nowhere to be found? Si asked blankly. The Empress nodded helplessly. In the entire Si family, only eldest brother and I know of Elder Meng's existence. Once His Majesty finds out, the consequences will be unimaginable. Therefore, I didn't dare to make it public and only sent people to search for him in private. We searched for an entire night, but we didn't find any traces of Rongzhen. We didn't even find any useful clues. Si fell into deep thought. Since Senior Meng took her out, they must have left the palace. Have you sent people to search for her favorite places outside the palace? I did, but I still couldn't find him. The Empress sighed. That's why I came here today to ask Big Brother for help. If it doesn't work, we can secretly search the entire imperial capital. Perhaps we can find it. Easy for you to say. Si got up and paced back and forth in frustration with one hand behind his back. Even for the Si family, it's extremely difficult to achieve this. Besides, if we cause too much of a commotion, people will definitely find out. In less than half a day, His Majesty will know what we're doing. Then, what can we do? The Empress was also a little anxious. Elder Meng is already dead, and Rongzhen is alone outside. We don't even know what's going on. Now that her Pearl of Essence is destroyed, anyone can easily take her life. If His Majesty finds out. Eldest brother, don't you know that the palace will immediately detect the death of every prince and princess? If something happens to Rongzhen, His Majesty will definitely send people to investigate. If that happens, Elder Meng will definitely be implicated. Then, it will be the Xi family and me. Rongzhen's current situation is already bad enough. If this is exposed, it will only make things worse. Rongzhen is really too much. She's getting older, but her temper is getting worse by the day. She didn't even think about the consequences of doing this. She'll harm us both. Xi glanced at the Empress. Aren't you the one who spoiled Rongzhen's temper? Besides, I see that you're so worried about her life not because you're afraid that something will happen to her, but because you're worried that she'll implicate you and Rongjin, right? If not, what can I do? The Empress was exposed, and her embarrassment turned into anger. It wasn't easy for me to fight for the Crown Prince position. If Rongjin falls, what else do I have to rely on? Rongqi? With his temper, he can't take on any big responsibilities. Rongqi's talent and abilities are average, so he can't be of use. Even if he's already a prince, he can't do anything. They're both princes, but look at Princely, Rongxiu. He hasn't been in the imperial city for so many years, but he can still win His Majesty's favor by staying at Princely Mansion all day after coming back. It's really infuriating to compare oneself to others. Xi waved his hands impatiently. Enough. There's no use saying all this now. We still have to find Rongzhen as soon as possible. As long as we hide it from His Majesty, everything will be fine. Oh right, do you know why Rongzhen asked Elder Meng to bring her out at this time? How would I know? Halfway through her sentence, a white light flashed across the Empress's heart. No. Rongzhen also asked Elder Meng to accompany her out previously. That time, she went to find Chu Luiyue. It was also after that time that Rongzhen often looked at the same drawing repeatedly. She had unintentionally seen it before, and it seemed to be a simple map. Rongzhen had also been talking about finding Chu Luiyue a few days ago. Chu Luiyue. She screamed in shock. Xi was dazed. What? What has this got to do with Chu Luiyue? No. Brother, you don't know. Rongzhen's disappearance is most likely related to Chu Luiyue. The Empress clasped her hands nervously and hated herself for not thinking of this earlier. It must be her. It must be her. Other than Chu Luiyue, who else can kill a stage 5 warrior so easily? Perhaps Chu Luiyue herself can't do it, but she has too many secrets and countless tricks up her sleeves. Brother. Quick. Get someone to find Chu Luiyue. Bring her here. Rongzhen must be with her. Xi couldn't help but frown upon seeing her like this. Calm down. What do you think the Xi family is? The Xi family isn't the Imperial Guards. How can you casually capture someone? Besides, Chu Luiyue isn't an ordinary person now. Who dares to touch her? If something happens to Chu Luiyue, needless to say, Chu Ning, Tianlu Academy won't let this matter rest. Also, there's Princely Mansion. And the most important one, Mu Qinghe. The Empress bit her lip. Then, ask her directly. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 330. If Chu Luiyue didn't do it, what will you do? Xi asked in a low voice. The Empress was stumped. She couldn't think of any rebuttal and could only mutter softly. It must be her. It must be. Other than her, it can't be anyone else. Xi's head hurt. Jing, listen to me. I know you're anxious about Rongzhen's disappearance, and so am I. But we can't do this. At this time, we have to be careful. Otherwise, if we're not careful, we'll lose everything. The Empress gradually calmed down. What should we do? Should we just sit here and wait? Si Yi was silent for a while. I'll send someone to find out about Chu Liuyue's situation and see if there's anything strange. The Empress's eyes lit up. Okay. Isn't Si Ting at Tianlu Academy too? I heard that they're classmates, so they must have some interactions. It's best to let him go. Si Yi was a little disgusted. He thought highly of Si Ting and had been grooming him as his successor. This wasn't something to be proud of. Based on Si Ting's personality, he would definitely be unwilling. Also, he wasn't willing to let Si Ting do this either. After the Qingjiao competition, Si Ting accumulated a lot of experience and has been focusing on cultivation. There's no need for him to go. Besides, it's just to find out some information. It's more suitable to let Si Yang go. He's also closer to Chu Luyue. The Empress disagreed. Si Yang? Would he be able to do it with his jumpy personality? Big brother, this is a small matter, but it's the most important. Big brother, you might not know Chu Luyue well, but she's very smart. If Si Yang goes, she'll probably realize that something is wrong. Si Ting is mature and cautious. It's better to let him go. Si Ye's face darkened, and he didn't say anything. The Empress carefully glanced at him, leaned closer, and pleaded in a soft voice, "Brother Yi, please forgive me." She pleaded, "Big brother, I know you dote on Si Ting the most, and I don't want to trouble him because of this. But, there's no other way, right? If you're really unwilling, then I'll find her myself. I've troubled Big Brother a lot all these years. I just hope that if anything happens in the future, you and the Si family won't be implicated." As she spoke, 2 streams of tears fell from her face. She was his sister after all, so Si Ye's heart ached for her. Seeing her in such a difficult position, he also felt bad. "Then, Big Brother, I'll take my leave first." As the Empress spoke, she wiped the tears off her face and got up to leave. Si shook his head helplessly. "Let Si Ting go." The Empress looked at him with surprise and gratitude, tears welling up in her eyes again. "Thank you, Big Brother." Si sighed and patted her shoulder. "It hasn't been easy for you in the palace all these years. You've helped the Si family a lot. We are bound together for good or ill. This small matter was nothing. You've been out for long enough today. You should return to the palace as soon as possible. I'll let you know as soon as I have any news." The Empress thanked him a few more times before leaving. Prince Li's mansion. Rongxiu reclined on the bed with his eyes closed. He stretched out an arm that was riddled with scars. Some of them were so deep that bone could be seen. It was badly mangled and looked extremely terrifying. Umo half knelt by the bed and carefully helped him change his dressing. Seeing the wounds on his master's body, even though he was used to killing, he still felt terrified. He lifted the gauze. Because of the bleeding and pus, a large portion of the gauze had already stuck to the flesh. Umo took a sharp knife and carefully cut away the stuck part. However, some parts of the wound still ruptured unavoidably. Umo quickly looked up at his master and sighed in his heart. Based on his master's abilities, the collapse of Joyo Tower would definitely not pose any threat to him. The reason why he was so severely injured was obviously because his master had done it on purpose. It was obvious who he did it for. "Master, how long do you plan to recuperate for this injury?" Umo took off the gauze and hesitated in the few bottles at the side. Rongxiu said lightly, "Use the gray bottle." Umo paused. "Master, the medicine in this bottle is not very effective for your injury. Why don't we use the white bottle?" He didn't dare to ask his master to use the gold bottle, which was the best, so he could only settle for the second best. However, that was still much better than the gray one. Rongxiu ignored his words and asked instead, "How's Yenqing doing?" Umo immediately replied, "After you entered Joyo Tower, Yenqing immediately went there. According to him, he seemed to have made some discoveries. He's on the way back now and should be back today." Rongxiu grunted lightly. It was impossible to tell if he was happy or angry. The room fell into silence again. Umo hesitated for a moment and said boldly, "Master, I know that you don't want to recover too quickly and arouse suspicion, but you have to think about Miss Lu Yu, right? She knows that you got injured because of her and must feel guilty. Your injury doesn't seem to be getting better day by day. Won't her heart ache every time she sees it?" Rong Xiu's fan-like eyelashes trembled slightly. Then, he slowly opened his eyes and looked at Umo thoughtfully. His eyes were pure and deep, like the most brilliant and mysterious starry night. It was as if he could see through everything. Suddenly, a cluster of golden flames flashed in the depths of his eyes. Umo's heart skipped a beat. "Master, digression, I've been having nightmares these few days. I dreamed that I was scolded for not updating properly, and even beaten up. I'll try my best not to be beaten up tomorrow at midnight." Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 331. That golden light quickly disappeared as if it had never appeared. However, Umo was sure that he had not seen wrongly. His heart trembled as he hurriedly lowered his eyes. "Master, Rong Xiu closed his eyes. After a while, he opened them again and regained his usual calmness. "Continue." His thin lips gently spat out 2 words. Umo picked up the gray bottle and evenly sprinkled the powder inside on Rong Xiu's wound. The bitter smell of medicine wafted in the air. Umo carefully bandaged his wound with new gauze while feeling conflicted. After he finished treating Rong Xiu's wound and was about to put away the bottles of medicine, he finally could not help but say, "Master, you haven't gone back for a long time. Do you want to take this chance to go back?" Rong Xiu's expression was calm, and he did not say anything. Umo knew that this was a rejection, so he could only leave respectfully. However, when he reached the door, he recalled the golden flame that flashed in Rong Xiu's eyes. He could not help but turn around and plead. "Master, are you really not going to reconsider? If Miss Lu Yu finds out, what has Mu Qing done in the past 2 days?" Rong Xiu suddenly asked. Umo thought carefully and shook his head. "Nothing. Other than the day of the fire at Tian Lu Academy's Joyo Tower, he has been staying in his residence for the rest of the time. He has not come out and has not seen anyone." Umo frowned as he spoke. "Master, are you going to stay here and watch over Mu Qing? Who knows how long Mu Qing will stay here for? However, Master's situation does not allow for any delays." Rong Xiu pondered for a moment. "You may leave. Carry on as usual." "Yes." Umo responded but was still hesitant. "Then, do you want to make arrangements for your return now?" Rong Xiu shook his head. "I know what to do." "Yes." Liao Zhongshu didn't have to wait long before he saw Chu Luiyue walk out of the room. He asked in surprise, "So fast?" Chu Luiyue smiled. "Yes. I've found some clues. I'll go back and think about it." "You should go back too." Only then was Liao Zhongshu relieved. He bid farewell to Chu Luiyue and left. Chu Luiyue returned to his residence alone. She went up to the 2nd floor, entered her room, and locked the doors and windows before taking out the letter. At first glance, this letter was no different from an ordinary letter. However, the complicated Xian formation on it made Chu Luiyue understand that this was a letter that the other party had deliberately sent to target her. She took a deep breath. This Xian formation should be a level 5 Xian formation, but its difficulty could be considered one of the highest. Even a true level 5 mystic cultivator might not be able to successfully fill in the remaining mystic formations. The strength she had shown to the outside world was definitely not at this level, but the other party had sent such a letter. There was only one explanation: the other party firmly believed that she could solve this Xian formation and open this letter. Chu Liuyue's hand that was holding the letter tightened slightly. In this world, there were very few people who knew that she had such strength. Then, Who was the person who was targeting her and knew her so well? Chu Luyue had a faint premonition. Perhaps, the answer was hidden in this letter. She held her breath and concentrated, beginning to study the Xian formation on the letter. After a moment, she picked up a brush from the table and dipped it in ink. Then, she lightly drew a line on the letter and began to fill in the Xian formation. Time passed by minute, and the Xian formation on the letter gradually became complete. Because she didn't add any force and only drew the Xian formation, Chu Liyue's process of drawing the Xian formation became much simpler. However, even so, this complicated Xian formation still took her a lot of effort. After about an hour, she finally finished drawing the entire Xian formation. When she finished the last stroke, the Xian formation on the letter suddenly lit up. Then, it transformed into countless rays of light and scattered in all directions. Chu Luyue waited for everything to dissipate before she finally opened the letter. She reached her hand inside, intending to take out the letter. When she touched the letter, Chu Liyue's heart suddenly jumped. Then, she almost couldn't wait and unbelievably pulled out the letter. It was a piece of high-quality Xian paper. The texture was soft, glossy like jade, and extremely delicate. However, Chu Luyue widened her eyes in shock. Because, she couldn't be more familiar with this touch. Her hands trembled slightly as she held up the letter. Sunlight shone in from the window and actually penetrated the letter, leaving sand shadows on the ground, as bright as the moon. Chu Liyue's heart seemed to have been struck by something. This is the Xian moon paper that was specially used in the Tianling dynasty's palace. It was extremely precious. Not to mention the palace servants, even the ordinary concubines and unfavored princes and princesses were not qualified to use it. The reason why she was familiar with it was because she was very fond of it. Whether it was books, paintings, or other things, she used this Xian moon paper the most. Countless guesses appeared in Chu Liyue's heart in an instant. This Xian moon paper was extremely precious and had always been specially provided in the Tianling dynasty. It was impossible for ordinary people to get their hands on it. To be able to get this Xian moon paper and specially send it to her, she fiercely closed her eyes, trying hard to calm herself down, and slowly opened the letter. On the soft and delicate paper, there was only one line of handwriting: Shangguanyu, long time no see. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 332. The sun was shining brightly, and a gentle breeze passed through the wooden window. The room was quiet and peaceful. However, Chu Luyue seemed to be frozen on the spot, unable to move at all. The blood in her body seemed to have frozen at this moment, and her cold limbs seemed to have gone numb. In her mind, it was as if someone had smashed a huge hammer. It was dull and painful. She held the piece of paper. It was light and thin, but it seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds. She only felt her vision go white, and every word on the paper was like a sharp knife that ruthlessly pierced her heart. She almost couldn't breathe. Shangguanyu, Shangguanyu. This name had been buried deep in her heart, and she didn't even want to mention it in her dreams. Now, it had appeared clearly on a piece of moon rice paper. She had always thought that she had hidden it very well and had even deceived Chu Ning, who had been with the original body. However, she didn't expect that someone had already known about it. The other party clearly knew her biggest secret, but she didn't even know who the other party was. Chu Luyue felt dizzy. She bit the tip of her tongue hard, letting the sharp pain wake her up. She quickly looked around. After confirming that there was no one else around, she heaved a heavy sigh and looked at the letter carefully. There was only one sentence on the paper. Other than that, there was nothing else. Chu Luyue compared the handwriting of that sentence with the handwriting on the envelope and found that it was indeed written by the same person. If she had seen such strong and vigorous handwriting before, she would definitely remember it. Unfortunately, no matter if it was in her previous life or this life, none of the people she knew had such a handwriting. However, the other party obviously knew her and had a high status. Or rather, they were extremely powerful. Otherwise, they definitely wouldn't have been able to obtain the moon rice paper. Chu Luiyue stared at the letter and fell into deep thought. Who could it be? Since her rebirth, she had been staying in country Yaochen's imperial capital. This place was thousands of miles away from the Tianling dynasty, and she had no way of contacting anyone from the past. Moreover, after experiencing the inhumane torture in the imperial ancestral hall, she had already lost her trust in everything in the past. Even Mu Qinghe, whom she had never suspected, had betrayed her, let alone the others. Her rebirth was her biggest secret and also her biggest trump card. She originally thought that she could become stronger step by step, and then go back and take revenge on those people. Take back everything that belonged to him. But now that this letter had suddenly appeared, she suddenly realized that things were developing in a direction that she could not foresee. How have you been? How have you been? Chu Luiyue murmured as countless faces flashed through his mind. Judging from his tone, he seemed to be quite familiar with her. However, she really couldn't figure out who the other party was. At this moment, she suddenly felt a strange movement in her dantian. Holding his breath and concentrating, the original spirit looked inside. Inside his dantian, the water droplet quietly floated. Directly below, within the heavenly square medicinal cauldron, a black-colored flame transformed into a legendary three-eyed eagle illusion. It was ferociously staring at the outside of the heavenly square medicinal cauldron. Dumpling? The two fiends were fighting with each other through the transparent heavenly square medicinal cauldron. Judging from the burnt fur on Dumpling's body, they had been fighting for a long time. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but hold her forehead. Why are you fighting again? It hasn't even been 2 days since you came out of Joyo Tower, and you have already fought 5 times. Haven't you fought enough? Dumpling remained motionless as she stared at the legendary three-eyed eagle opposite her. Although the legendary three-eyed eagle was a divine beast, it didn't have a physical body now. Only a soul was left in the karmic fire, and its size was about the same as Dumpling's. The legendary three-eyed eagle's scarlet eyes were indifferent and cold. If it wasn't trapped in the heavenly square medicinal cauldron, it would have long rushed out and killed this reckless thing in front of it 1,000 times. No matter what, it was a renowned paragon back then. Now, it was reduced to fighting with a mere blood ferret. It was really shameless. Looking at the two fiends who were still at daggers drawn, Chu Luiyue pondered for a moment, looked at Dumpling, and said, Dumpling, if you continue fighting, I won't stand up for you. Dumpling swung its tail and angrily pulled it up. Chu Luiyue then saw that there was a burnt patch on it. You're not angry because of this, are you? Dumpling nodded fiercely. That's it. Its beautiful fur had been destroyed. It had never suffered such grievances before. If it didn't get revenge for this, how could it continue living in this world? Chu Luiyue was speechless as she looked at its angry and self-righteous look. Isn't this because you provoked it first? Although she wasn't paying attention to the situation in her dantian, it didn't mean that she didn't know anything. Dumpling choked. A look of mockery flashed across the legendary three-eyed eagle's eyes. A mere third-grade fiend. Its level isn't high, but it has many problems. Dumpling was instantly enraged. Chu Luiyue glanced at the legendary three-eyed eagle indifferently. You're a divine beast, but aren't you staying here and fighting with a mere third-grade fiend? The legendary three-eyed eagle was stunned and felt extremely embarrassed. It flapped its wings fiercely. If it wasn't trapped by the heavenly square cauldron, it wouldn't have experienced such humiliation. Chu Luiyue saw that the two fiends finally stopped fighting, but another question arose in her heart. Dumpling was indeed a third-grade blood ferret. Facing the legendary three-eyed eagle, it should be respectful and fearful. However, the current situation didn't seem to be the case at all. Dumpling didn't seem to be as respectful as other fiends towards fiends that were of a higher grade than itself. It was like this when it faced the black flying python in Wanling Mountain, and it was the same when it faced the legendary three-eyed eagle now. But the key was that the legendary three-eyed eagle was a divine beast. What kind of secret was Dumpling hiding? Chu Luiyue looked at Dumpling and pondered for a while. She suddenly said, I remember that third-grade blood ferrets have the chance to break through and increase their grade. Dumpling, what about you? Dumpling was still hugging its tail pitifully as if it didn't care about this question. Chu Luiyue thought for a while and felt that there was no point in asking these questions. Dumpling wanted to follow her, and she could feel that Dumpling liked and relied on her. Perhaps this was enough. As for those mysteries, perhaps they would be solved in the future. Chu Luiyue opened her eyes and looked at the letter in her hands again. After a while, she put the letter away and placed it in her cosmic bag. The C family. Study room. Si Ting looked at Si Yi. His brows were slightly knitted on his cold face, and it was obvious that he didn't agree. You're asking me to find Chu Luiyue to ask about Rongzhen's whereabouts? Si Yi coughed. I know that you don't like to do these things, but this is very important. I can only rest assured if I leave it to you. Si Ting paused and said coldly, I'm not going. I'm not going. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 333. Si had already expected Si Ting to reject him, so he wasn't surprised and patiently persuaded him. Si Ting, I know that you have dealings with Si Yang and Chu Luiyue. This isn't difficult for you. Master, I can't follow your orders. Si Ting interrupted Si Yi, which was rare of him. Si Yi was stunned for a moment. It was only then that he realized that Si Ting was very resistant to this matter. But this doesn't just involve Rongzhen. It also involves the Empress and Rongjin. After all, the Empress is a member of the Si family. If anything happens to them, it will be a huge problem for the Si family. Si Ting glanced at Si Yi and calmly asked, the Empress is the fourth princess. She should immediately inform His Majesty about her disappearance and get the Imperial Guards to look for her. Why would the Empress secretly let the Si family do this? Also, it somehow involves Chu Luiyue. He remembered that Rongzhen and Chu Luiyue didn't interact much. The only time they met was at Crown Prince Rongjin's birthday banquet. That time, Rongzhen purposely humiliated Chu Luiyue in front of everyone, but she was taught a lesson by Chu Luiyue in the end. Perhaps Rongzhen hated Chu Luiyue from then on. According to her personality, it wasn't surprising that she secretly attacked Chu Luiyue after that. But now that she's missing, what does it have to do with Chu Luiyue? Si Yi was at a loss for words. He couldn't tell Si Ting about Elder Meng's existence. But Si Ting was stubborn. If he wanted to get to the bottom of it, then, these things are very complicated. Anyway, even if it's for the Si family, what can you do by asking? Si Ye's head hurt. As long as you don't let Chu Luiyue find out that you're asking about Rongzhen, she'll definitely know. Si Ting said resolutely. Chu Luiyue was smarter than expected. Many times, even he couldn't tell what she was thinking. Master, I've been classmates with Chu Luiyue for a few months, so I have some understanding of her. If this matter really had something to do with her, then once I opened my mouth, she would definitely be immediately alarmed. On the other hand, if there's no relationship between them, then asking her out of the blue will only arouse her curiosity and suspicion. Therefore, no matter how one looked at it, it was useless to get any information from Chu Luiyue. Si Yi leaned back in his chair and fell into deep thought. He knew that Si Ting's words made sense. But other than that, what else could he do? Get someone else to go? He was really worried. Si Ting looked at him with a dark expression. Patriarch. Chu Luiyue has already been selected by Vice Admiral Mu. Do you really want to put the entire Si family in danger for the Empress and the Crown Prince? Si Yi was suddenly shocked. Mu Qinghe was resting in her room. Red Demon stood by the window and groomed its feathers from time to time. The wounds from the previous fight had already healed, but it still felt that it had affected its image, so it had been staying obediently for the time being. It wanted to wait until it was completely healed before going out. Once bitten, twice shy. I've taught you this lesson too many times. If you don't listen, you'll be the one who suffers in the end. Mu Qinghe glanced at Hong Yao and poured herself a cup of tea. Hong Yao pretended not to hear anything. Mu Qinghe looked at the rising white smoke without any expression on his face. You're only a 7th grade fiend now. How dare you fight with a divine beast? Hong Yao froze. It had not revealed anything from the beginning to the end. How did Mu Qinghe know? Mu Qinghe narrowed her eyes when she saw its reaction. It seems like it's true. It had been tricked. Hong Yao suddenly understood and was very annoyed. Mu Qinghe was just guessing and tricking it. Hong Yao glared at Mu Qinghe fiercely. It was always like this. It would betray its master sooner or later. Mu Qinghe picked up the teacup and rubbed it slowly. Divine beast. This place is indeed. His voice was very low, and it was almost inaudible. Suddenly, Hong Yao felt a familiar aura. Its eyes lit up as it flapped its wings and flew outside. Mu Qinghe looked up slightly and looked at the door with deep meaning. Chu Luiyue looked up slightly and looked at the house in front of her. This was Mu Qinghe's residence in the Imperial City. There were no guards outside the door, and even the streets beside it were deserted. She didn't meet anyone on her way here. Those who didn't know would find it strange if they came here. However, Mu Qinghe was the one living here, so everything made sense. In the Imperial City, there were countless people who wanted to visit Mu Qinghe in order to establish a relationship with him. However, nobody dared to do so. Even Emperor Jiawen didn't dare to disturb him, let alone others. She heard that Emperor Jiawen originally wanted to send a few people to serve Mu Qinghe, but he rejected them all. Hence, there wasn't a single servant inside or outside the house. Mu Qinghe lived here by himself. However, there was a transparent barrier outside the door. From afar, one wouldn't notice anything strange. However, once one got close, they would immediately feel a strong suppression. Chu Luiyue was thinking about how to knock on the door when a green figure suddenly flew out from the wall and went straight for her. Hong Yao? Chu Luiyue looked shocked, but she thought in her heart, Hong Yao's sensitive sense of smell is still the same as before. It can even tell that it's me from so far away. Hong Yao happily flew in front of Chu Luiyue. I was about to die from boredom these 2 days. I didn't expect Chu Luiyue to come today. Hong Yao, your master, creak. Before Chu Luiyue could finish her sentence, the door suddenly opened from the inside. An entrance appeared above the spirit formation. Hong Yao quickly flapped its wings, urging Chu Luiyue to hurry in. Chu Luiyue's lips curved up slightly as she walked in. Walking through the front yard and the corridor, Chu Luiyue finally came to a room. The door was open, and Mu Qinghe was sitting inside drinking tea. Chu Luiyue was hesitating whether to speak or not when Mu Qinghe said without raising her head. Just come in. Chu Luiyue followed Hong Yao in. Greetings, Vice Admiral Mu. After the first time, it was much easier to bow to Mu Qinghe again. Only then did Mu Qinghe look up. If you feel bored here, then you can go and focus on your cultivation. Chu Luiyue was stunned for a moment before realizing that these words were directed at Hong Yao. Red Demon rolled its eyes, unwilling to give up. It had heard this kind of words countless times. If it was in a good mood, it might listen to it. But now, she was here. How could it be dismissed like this? Hong Yao landed next to Mu Qinghe's hand and drank tea from her teacup. Half of its head was almost buried in it. After drinking enough, it raised its head and shook its head violently. The tea splashed everywhere. Mu Qinghe gave it a warning look. Chu Luiyue suddenly said, Vice Admiral Mu, I came here today to discuss something with you. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 334. Mu Qinghe then looked at Chu Luiyue. His voice was as cold and indifferent as ever. Speak. Hong Yao knew when to stop. It immediately took the opportunity to run and hide behind the window. Chu Luiyue glanced at it from the corner of her eye and sighed in her heart. Hong Yao was really troublesome. It knew that Mu Qinghe hated it when people touched his tea, but it still dared to do so. It was really rare for it to survive until now. It was strange. Mu Qinghe came from a humble background. When he was young, he had to snatch rotten buns from beggars and did not have a good day. Later on, when he followed her, his conditions in all aspects improved a lot. However, he was not like other people who had risen from poverty and were passionate about those luxuries. Instead, he was wholeheartedly focused on cultivation and war. Except for one thing, tea. Even she did not know when he fell in love with tea. Not only did he like to drink tea, but he also liked to make tea. Chu Luiyue remembered that he had good tea brewing skills. Even the tea masters in the palace might not be comparable to him. She stopped thinking and looked at Mu Qinghe. She briefly told him her plan. So, I'm here this time to hope that you can approve it. As for the length of time I stay in Tai Yen Academy, it's up to you. Mu Qinghe picked up another cup and poured a cup of tea. He looked at Chu Luiyue with a scrutinizing gaze. It seems like you're sure that I won't leave here in the short term. That's why you have the guts to make such a request. Chu Luiyue's smile did not change. Didn't you say before that you would stay here for a period of time? I don't know how long you're referring to, but I'm here to ask. After all, it's an extremely rare opportunity to borrow books from other academies' libraries for free. I don't want to miss it. Vice Admiral Mu, please understand. Mu Qinghe did not speak for a long time. Other than looking for a genius with a Daijing Yuan meridian, he did have other important things to do this time. It would definitely not end in 3 to 5 days. Chu Luiyue's request did not seem wrong. However, you can go if you want, but I have a question that you have to answer honestly. Chu Luiyue nodded. Vice Admiral Mu, please speak. Mu Qinghe stared at her. That day, in Joyo Tower, did you get something? Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. Then, her eyes widened slightly, as if she was surprised and curious. What do you mean? Mu Qinghe didn't say anything. He just looked at her with a deep gaze as if he wanted to expose her lie. His cultivation level was extremely high, so the pressure on his body was also extremely strong. His piercingly cold gaze was almost tangible. If it were anyone else, they probably wouldn't be able to withstand such scrutiny. But Chu Luiyue was different. She had met Mu Qinghe when he was at his lowest. She had seen him at his most miserable and pitiful state. She had also given Mu Qinghe a chance to become the youngest deputy general of the Tianling dynasty. She had seen him in his most glorious state. Hence, Mu Qinghe's gaze was completely useless to her. She frowned slightly, as if she was thinking. After a while, she shook her head. Vice Admiral Mu, I'm sorry. I really don't know what you're talking about. That day, the situation was critical. Prince Li and I escaped with great difficulty. Not only did we not bring anything with us, but we also almost lost our lives there. What exactly do you want to ask? Mu Qinghe looked at the woman in front of him. Intelligent, quick-witted, and a genius. Her expression was so sincere that it even made him wonder if his initial guess was wrong. Chu Luiyue pursed her lips hesitantly. Then, she asked softly in a probing tone. Vice Admiral Mu? Are you looking for something? Mu Qinghe's gaze sharpened. The aura on his body instantly surged, and it surged toward Chu Luiyue. Screech. Hong Yao let out a clear cry. A green flame instantly flew in front of Chu Luiyue. It transformed into a barrier. It blocked Mu Qinghe's coercion outside. The two forces fought crazily. Bang! The tea set beside Mu Qinghe's hand shattered. Even the entire set of tables and chairs had many cracks on them. Chu Luiyue frowned slightly. She was just asking a probing question. She didn't expect Mu Qinghe to have such a big reaction. This only proved that she was right. But, why did Mu Qinghe come all the way here? What exactly is he looking for? The forces of both sides gradually dissipated, leaving the entire room in a mess. Chu Luiyue glanced at the broken teacup on the ground. It seemed to be freshly soaked Jin Jun Mei. In the past, Mu Qinghe never drank this kind of tea. She retracted her gaze. Vice Admiral Mu, did you misunderstand something? I just wanted to say that very few people set foot on the upper floors of Joyo Tower. Prince Li and I were able to come out safely from the 6th floor thanks to the things his mother left there. If you really want to find something, perhaps Prince Li will have some clues. The murderous intent in Mu Qinghe's eyes gradually faded. No need. As soon as he finished speaking, the room fell into a dead silence. Chu Luiyue felt that if this continued, the matter might not be settled. She could only cough to break the deadlock. Vice Admiral Mu, your tea spilled. Why don't I compensate you with a pot of tea? I happened to get a bottle of superior grade Jin Jun Mei some time ago. Although it's definitely not good enough for you, but no need. Mu Qinghe interrupted her and paused for a moment. I'll give you 10 days. Chu Luiyue smiled happily. Thank you, Vice Admiral Mu. Although this person's temper became more and more unpredictable, she was still very happy that he was willing to agree to her request. Mu Qinghe looked at the smiling girl in front of him and was momentarily dazed. That pair of bright and pure black jade-like eyes were too similar. They were clearly two different faces, but when they smiled, the expression between their eyebrows was so similar. However, when he took a closer look, he felt that it wasn't the same. There were too many things hidden in Chu Luiyue's eyes. That was an expression that only someone who had experienced countless hardships would have. She was different. She was always noble, pure, and clean. Mu Qinghe averted his gaze without batting an eyelid. During this period of time, the number of times he had thought of her was simply too frequent. This was not a good thing. Go back. Remember, you only have 10 days. Chu Luiyue noticed that Mu Qinghe's mood seemed to have changed a little, but she knew that it was no good for her to stay, so she happily bowed and left. Hong Yao followed her to the door reluctantly. She had only been here for a short while, and she was leaving. Moreover, according to what they said just now, didn't it mean that it would not see her for the remaining 10 days? Chu Luiyue walked to the boundary and looked back at Hong Yao, who was reluctant to leave. She leaned closer and whispered, "You're too young. I'll bring you a gift when I come back." Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 335. Hong Yao then cheered up again. Chu Luiyue stepped out of the barrier and left. Hong Yao watched as her figure disappeared. When it was sure that she had left, it suddenly let out a joyful cry. I finally have a present again. Hong Yao happily returned to the courtyard and saw Mu Qinghe cleaning up the broken teacup. Hong Yao was in a good mood, so it didn't plan to continue arguing with Mu Qinghe. However, it still couldn't help but go over and fly one round around Mu Qinghe. Mu Qinghe looked up and coldly glanced at Hong Yao. It seems like she knows how to coax you. Hong Yao proudly raised its head. Mu Qinghe said in a low voice, I won't help you in the future. I won't help her for your sake in the future. You're on your own now. Also, I know that you're so close to her because you think that she's similar to her. However, I'm warning you for the last time. It's hard to predict people's hearts in this world. If she knows this, she'll definitely think of ways to make use of you. Don't regret it then. After all, he was Hong Yao's master. How could he not guess Hong Yao's thoughts? From the first time he saw Chu Luiyue until now, there was only one reason why Hong Yao was so close to her. He could tolerate it once, but it didn't mean that he would let people take advantage of him. Hong Yao glanced at him faintly. Ha, stupid human. I wonder who's the one who'll really regret it then. Even though 10 days was relatively short, it already surprised Chu Luiyue. What made her even happier was that Mu Hongyu told her early the next morning that her mother had arrived in the imperial city. This took less time than she expected. The news of Princess Consort Ping Zhang's arrival in the imperial city quickly spread, and Emperor Zhaoan specially sent people to welcome her. However, considering that Princess Consort Ping Zhang's health wasn't good, he didn't hold a palace banquet to welcome her. Mu Hongyu and Chu Luiyue went to Prince Ping Zhang's mansion in the imperial city together. I didn't know that your father had a special residence in the imperial city. Chu Luiyue followed Mu Hongyu into the strictly guarded Wang Fu and was somewhat surprised. Mu Hongyu giggled. Because my imperial father will come back to the imperial capital for 2 months every 3 years. Therefore, His Majesty specially approved a residence for my father. I came here once when I was a kid. I didn't hear you mention it before. Why didn't you stay here after you entered the academy? Why did you stay in the academy instead? Mu Hongyu made a face. Who wants to live here? With so many people, there were also many rules. It was not convenient at all. It's best to stay in the academy. Chu Luiyue thought about it and agreed. Not only was the academy free and convenient, it was also safe. With Mu Hongyu's personality, it was hard for her to imagine living here alone. The two of them walked inside. When he arrived at the backyard, a white-robed old man with white hair was already standing there waiting for him. Upon seeing the old man, Mu Hongyu was overjoyed and rushed forward. Grandpa Wu Shan. You're here too. The wrinkles on Wu Shan's face bloomed like a flower as he chuckled. Young princess, it's been a few months since we last met. This old man misses you dearly. Quick, tell this old man, has the young princess been crying in the past few months? Mu Hongyu couldn't help but pout. Grandpa Wu Shan, we haven't met for so long. Why are you talking about this the moment we meet? I'm already 16 years old. I've stopped crying long ago. Wu Shan's face revealed a trace of surprise. Young princess has already broken through to become a stage 4 warrior? Mu Hongyu wrinkled her nose proudly. Of course. Young princess has really grown up. And she's getting more and more outstanding. If His Highness and Her Highness knew about this, they would be very happy. Wu Shan sighed. Mu Hongyu hurriedly asked. By the way, how is mother now? The smile on Wu Shan's face froze and a trace of worry appeared. This. Young princess, you should go and see for yourself. Mu Hongyu's heart sank. Could it be that mother's condition is worse than I imagined? That's right. After all, she has been traveling day and night. Perhaps her condition has worsened. I'll go and take a look. Mu Hongyu said as she pulled Chu Luiyue into the house. However, Wu Shan suddenly blocked the two of them and swept his gaze across Chu Luiyue. This is, look at me. I forgot to introduce her. Grandpa Wu Shan, this is Chu Luiyue. It's all thanks to her that Vice Admiral Mu is willing to help this time. Wu Shan was shocked when he heard the name. He hurriedly took a step back and cupped his hands. So it's Miss Chu. Sorry for the disrespect. Although they had just arrived at the capital city, the name, Chu Luiyue, was very well known. I really don't know how to repay your kindness this time, Wu Shan said with a face of gratitude. Senior Wu Shan, you're too kind. Hongyu and I are friends, so this is what I should do. Chu Luiyue glanced at the anxious Mu Hongyu and smiled. If you don't mind, I would like to visit the princess consort with Hongyu. Is that okay? Of course. Of course. Please come in. The princess consort's condition was very serious, but no outsiders knew about it. Wu Shan and the rest were very vigilant along the way. If it were someone else, they would definitely not agree. However, this person was Chu Luiyue, so there was no problem. After all, without her help, the envoy of the Tianling dynasty would not agree to hire a celestial physician to treat the princess consort's illness. Chu Luiyue and Mu Hongyu quickly walked into the house together. Wu Shan stood outside and watched over them. The moment they entered the room, Chu Luiyue saw a woman lying on the bed. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. This must be Mu Hongyu's mother. Her eyes were closed, and her face was pale. Her cheeks were sunken, and there was an aura of death between her brows. She looked very haggard. Mu Hongyu's eyes reddened as she rushed to the bedside. Mother. When the princess consort heard the voice, her eyeballs seemed to move, and she slowly opened her eyes. Her eyes were dim, and she was exhausted as if she had exhausted all her energy. She looked at Mu Hongyu and reached out with difficulty to touch Mu Hongyu's face. She revealed a pale and weak smile as she said in a hoarse voice, "You." Mu Hongyu's eyes instantly welled up with tears. She immediately lowered her head to wipe them away as if she did not want her mother to see her like this. However, as she held her mother's bony hand, she couldn't stop her tears from rolling down her cheeks. Mother. Mother. Why? Why are you like this? Mu Hongyu had left home to study at Tianlu Academy for less than a year. Although her mother's health was not good in the past, she was not like this. The princess consort helped Mu Hongyu wipe her tears slowly, but she quickly lost her strength. Another old man in green standing by the bedside stroked his beard. Young princess, don't worry. Wait for the people from the Tianling dynasty to come. There will definitely be a way. Mu Hongyu knew that this was her only hope now, so she could only nod and swallow her tears. A clear female voice could be heard. May I take the princess consort's pulse first? Digression, 12 a.m. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. You're tuning in to the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.